Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Crypto Night Show. Your host Superman in the house. Hope you guys are enjoying your time out there. Well, obviously we've got a bit of a pullback in the market at the moment, but for those that have been around, we see this in the cycles, so no surprises. We're going to break it down and get into obviously what's happening with the stock market. Bit of a pullback last night from record highs. Remember that. We've also obviously got a big AI theme playing out. That's really where a lot of the value's been going into. And then we're going to get into crypto majors. We're going to look at those. We've got obviously Bitcoin and Ethereum pulling back pretty dramatically, back to retest, doing a retest of the February lows. And but we've got this counter move, haven't we? We've got this counter move with several projects that are actually moving up in value, and particularly in AI related categories on crypto. So we're going to look at those as well, break those down. That should be pretty insightful. And then, of course, we're going to get into some of the real changes around the preferred equity, and of course, particularly around Michael Saylor's stretch product. And then we're going to break out some breaking news around Bitmine immersion coming up as well. So we're going to talk a few things about that. So it's going to be really insightful. And then we're going to get into Pulsechain. Pulsechain resilience holding up, fighting for the 7,000 line again for another week. I mean, how many weeks do we have to go through? We're in week 11. We've obviously got the retest going on in the crypto majors. How many more weeks? Is it going to be 2 more weeks, 6 more weeks? We're battling to find the bottom on Pulsechain at 7,000, and then hopefully start to step up for glory in the years ahead. I mean, that's essentially it. So we're going to also look at that. We're going to look at what's hot on Pulsechain as well in the top 100 pairs, and we're going to break down the liquidity as well. So it's going to be full range coverage. Hope you guys enjoy it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe on the way in. We're streaming on 3 YouTube channels: the Crypto Nights Show, Superman Crypto, and Pulsechain X, and also obviously live on X as well. Don't forget to smash the follow on X, and most importantly, hit the repost button on X as well. All right, so I was off yesterday, but I had something important that I had to do, but we're back today. As you guys know, the largest Pulsechain influencer doing daily shows for over 6 years, and I'm only off if I have a good reason, a good reason to do it. So that's, if I'm not there, you know there's a good reason for it. All right, so let's get into it. Without further ado, let's kick out into the stock market and see what's going on with the bigger picture, and then we'll get into the crypto majors and then into Pulsechain. Going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's do it. All right, so we've got US stock futures dip as Broadcom spurs chip losses, and there's still Iran jitters. Now, obviously, Iran's still playing a key role, particularly for crypto majors, particularly for Ethereum. So we're going to talk about that in a second. But we've got the Dow Jones at the moment down 1.2%. So remember, those are top 30 industrials. They're down down 620 points from the Dow Jones at 50,687. Remember that we're coming off record highs here. So if we look at the last month, we've had the records. We're just coming off the top of the record, which was at 51,300. We're now down at 50,700. So there's about 700 points off there, or 600 points, I should say, off there. And then we've got the S&P 500 down 0.75%, 56 points to 7,553. And if we look at the last month, we're just off. We're still really up there, but we're just down slightly off the top on the S&P 500. The target for the end of the year is still around, I think, around 8,300. So we've still got a lot of upside for the year, but we'll get into that timing as we progress in the show. NASDAQ there is down 0.9%, 240 points off the high as well. So we're just on the high, up at 27,100. So we're down about maybe about 200, let's say 275 points, something like that. Looking at the US dollar, we're at 99.4. So that has been slightly increasing in value. We can see that it's been certainly in the last month. We can see the last sort of 2.5 weeks has been stronger. So the US dollar strengthening a little bit there with this uncertainty. We've got the volatility index, which means kind of risk on, risk off. That's slightly stronger, up 2%, but still, as you can see, over the last year, we're at the risk on period. So, not a lot of scariness going on there. Most of the scariness was during the beginning of the Iranian war and a few other issues during the Iranian conflict, and that's where we got to 30, right? So we're down at 16 at the moment. So that's kind of the general overview of the markets. Obviously, Broadcom was just slightly below expectations on revenue, and so it's sort of spilled over a little bit into the AI chips, but it's very modest in my view. We got West Texas at the moment down 1% at $95. So that's down $1. That's good news. So we got this big premium in oil, and I want to really think about that because that's kind of inversely related to Ethereum. If we do get a deal done in some stage, then we've probably got 50% down. That $95 oil will go down to like $45 to $50. And why we think it will be lower is because potentially we've got more production, right, in other areas like the US to take up, Middle East production, for example. And of course, new contracts being done, new deals being done during that stress period where people need to get reliability, particularly all the net zero countries with their silly policies, right? So $95 at the moment. If we get that big move, that's going to be massive run for ETH. So just take into account that's a huge catalyst. Brent oil at the moment is down 1.25%, $1.20 to $96.69. Same story around Brent oil as well. So that's really, really key for us moving forward. We're going to keep a track on that. So that drops suddenly $10, $20. We've seen that happen just like it went up. Then it's bull on for the Ethereum. So at the moment, we're kind of in this zone where you're getting good value for picking up the stocks. We're going to show you that on the charts for crypto coming up. So while maybe fear on the streets right now, big correction, we're certainly on this retest of February's lows. It's giving you another opportunity to pick up value, right? Gold at the moment is up 0.5%, $22 at 4,500. That's essentially rolled over, in my opinion. Silver is down 0.5%, 40 cents. That's $73.30. Obviously, there's a technology story there, but that's a longer term story, right? And then, of course, we've got copper is down a little bit as well. That's obviously a general reflection of the health of the economy and also electronics as well. So, obviously gold and silver, copper used in modern technology, but also copper particularly used in electricity networks and things like that. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. Let's have a look at what we've got in terms of economic news coming up before we get into the cryptos. So the economic calendar. And the reason why we go through the stock market and all that, because it has a lot of connections into crypto, right? We have different asset classes getting rotated in through one after another. We're expecting crypto to coming up in July onwards. So we're expecting that run to start happening as money, flows through. We've already seen gold and silver, seen the stock market AI. We're expecting that to roll in to the crypto markets in the second half of the year, right? So I don't think it's actually too far away once we've done this retest, right? That's kind of the narrative there, the story. Let's have a look at the next week. We're on Thursday. Let's keep a look this week still. So this week we had the ISM manufacturing index. That was bullish. You guys know we were pretty much contractionary for 2 years. And we were waiting for this. This is like oil. This is another key fundamental correlation to the crypto run. And we've seen for the last 3 or 4 months that the ISM has been expanding. So we had 54 over 53. So this is bullish too. So just a little bit of delay. But I think as we go, kept back by oil, but as we go into the next sort of 18 to 24 months, we're going to get this bull run, right, that we're after, right? That doesn't mean there's not going to be corrections on the way, but that's a general uptrend, right? And it's going to be hopefully pretty glorious with the banana part of the curve that we're all waiting for. And that is a very bullish sign. So we're getting a lot of the fundamentals lining up for us, right? Jobs opening increase, so 7.6 million on the JOLTS report for April compared to 6.86 and 6.88 million last month. So that's really bullish on the job market in terms of opportunities in the United States. And of course, we also had a non-farm payroll looking good. We also had, obviously, the ISM non-manufacturing also looking good, 54 over 53. So expansion in the US. US is looking very good. Obviously, just getting oil prices down. Now, the US, of course, has become a big oil producer and the biggest in the world, I think, at the moment. Just trying to remember how many barrels per day. The world uses approximately something like 100 million barrels a day. And I think the US is doing about 7 million from memory. So you can double check that. But I think it's something in that order of magnitude. So it's pretty awesome. And essentially, America is self-sufficient for the most part, but also increased their sales and production because of the Strait of Hormuz issue, right? We've had these ships starting to, it's a lot further to go, but essentially they've been doing a lot of deals, including countries like Japan with the US, things like that. So pretty cool. Remember, Japan has kind of an emergency, I think it's about 9 months, something like that, 7-9 months, somewhere in that ballpark. So it's quite long compared to, say, Australia, New Zealand, which is more like, a month to 2 months. And we've seen, obviously, the longer you have a reserve, the better you are off, especially in cases like this. All right, so that's kind of where we are at the moment on these numbers. Obviously, we're coming up We've got non-farm payrolls, average hourly earnings, and unemployment rate on Friday, and initial jobless claims. Oh, sorry, on Saturday, and initial jobless claims on Friday. So still some pretty key economic data there. Now, looking at next week briefly, we've got CPI, big number, right? CPI. We've got a new chair, Wash, in power. And although he's more dovish, in other words, we may still get an interest rate cut, he's not the only president on the board. Still got to get others on the majority and get an interest rate cut. I still think that there's room for up to 50 basis points. We've got the federal funds rate at 7.375, inflation around about 3.2 if you're using the PCE inflation data. And of course, if you're using CPI, we had a previous print year on year of 3.8%. So it is pretty close to 1-to-1 now, but I still think there's a bit of room there. We'll see what happens there. Obviously, the market essentially has priced out no change to the interest rates. So we'll see whether where I'm being a bit too bullish there. It's certainly early in the year that was definitely there. But of course, with the Strait of Hormuz, the oil issue, it has built up a potential oil issue and flow into inflation. So that is still an uncertainty and risk moving forward. Obviously, if we get a deal done sooner than later, then that will be more modest, right, and more manageable. So that's kind of at the moment. And then on Friday next week, we've also got the PPI, the wholesale inflation. That's also key. So two key inflation numbers there coming in, and of course the initial jobless claims as well. So we'll keep a lookout for that next week. So it's still quite a bit of economic data due this, Friday, Saturday, and into Thursday, Friday next week. So we'll keep a lookout for that. All right, so let's jump into the crypto majors. Let's have a look at where we are. We're going to do a refresh here. Obviously, we've got a big rout going on, a big retest going on at the moment with crypto. Now, we've been talking about the bullish scenario longer term from July onwards, if you recall some of the previous commentaries. But we also were aware, obviously, markets can still go down and we can get this retest. Well, we've got the retest. Tom Lee was always talking about moving from crypto spring, crypto winter to crypto spring. Now he's talking about crypto spring still, but we really didn't get his 3 months in a row bullish results, right? We missed out on that third month just by here. So arguably, maybe crypto spring's just a little bit later. I think it's, going to be July, right? So that's kind of where I think everything's lining up. Why do we say that? Well, because obviously we've got the retest at the moment, but we've still got higher oil prices, even though they've come down about $10, $20. We've still got a 50% premium in there. We've still got the regulations going through the Senate with the Clarity Act and essentially with the new Bitcoin Act. So we've still got those things going through June, and hopefully we'll get at least the Clarity Act out by the 4th of July. Fingers crossed. I would say the probability is about 60%. At the moment, I think prediction market's at 56%. I think it's slightly stronger than that, and maybe we'll get a strengthening of that in the month of June. We've got the write-ups happening, I think today, actually, for the Senate, where it's adding in the agricultural changes. And, of course, they're doing some little technical changes around the Genius Act and the Clarity Act as well, and a few other items. So we'll see how that goes through for a vote in June as it presses to the Senate floor, right? So that's kind of the play. So fingers crossed, guys. Now, crypto's going to do well without it, but I think it's very important to secure innovation in the United States, because obviously, the United States is the most wealthy country in the world, the most innovative country in the world in many categories, I would say. And so that's very important, right? So, it's the biggest consumer in the world. Remember, 70% of the US economy is consumption. US economy is about $28 trillion. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal, right? Interestingly enough, with SpaceX IPO coming up, their addressable market is the biggest in all time. And that they've put in the IPO that $28 trillion as well, which is the same amount as the US economy. So the world's about to enter the space age, the technological age, the intelligence age, and we're just setting up the takeoff phase for that right now. And that's what we've seen in the rally in the stock market. But I think it's got a long way to run. So let's see what happens in the years ahead. It's going to be pretty exciting. We've got humanoid robots going to mass production. We've got space compute and laser communications and landing on planets and building space stations and all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be a fun couple of years if you like sci-fi, because it's all going to start to become real, right? So keep a lookout for that. It's going to be good. All right, so so that's kind of where we are right now. Let's jump into the Bitcoin price. So total markets at the moment sitting at 2.26 trillion. It was only a couple of days ago we're at 2.5 trillion. We're down 4.8% total market here on CoinGecko. Bitcoin is down 7.1% in the last 24 hours to 62,114. So it's quite the rout, right? Quite the rout. We're down 16.5% for the last week. So, you know, Tom Lee's moving from crypto winter to crypto spring. Not quite there, right? Not quite there. I think it's a month too early, and I think July is the takeoff page. As I said, we've got the regulations going through. We obviously still got high oil, inverse relationship to Ethereum, and of course we've then got in July, we've sort of got the votes for the digital asset treasuries, preferred equity, which is harvesting the debt markets, and then we've got the takeoff for those products, both from Strategy and Strive in July. So that is kind of where we're sitting. And that's why I think July onwards, the second half of the year, it's looking very good. It doesn't mean we still won't, and we also got the interest rates right around the new chair, and the chair will get tested. So those are some of the key variables we've been looking at. But there's still some shining lights on the hill, and we're going to go through that list now. All right, so Ethereum at the moment down 5.5%, is down 13.3% for 13.3% for the week. Less than Bitcoin. Notice that's less than Bitcoin. Interesting. And we are sitting at 1,757. So ETH looking very cheap right now. And we're going to look at that in the charts coming up. BNB at number 4 is down 7.4% in the last 24 hours and 7.5% for the week. So doing way better than the crypto, you know, Bitcoin and Ethereum. We got XRP at number 6 is down 5.1% for the 24 hours, 11.3% for the week. So closer to Ethereum, but not as bad at $1.16. Solana at number 7 is down 8.1%, 16.8%. So it is actually the worst so far out of the top 7, and that is down 16.8% for the week. We've got Tron down 0.7%, 10% for the week. And then we've got number 10 is Hyperliquid, which bypassed Dogecoin a couple of days ago. That is up 4.5%, very important there, but up 25% for the week. So this is the first leader in the top 10 that is counter moving to Bitcoin, right? And why is it? Because obviously hype there is attracting a lot of attention. There's different reasons. Maybe it's because it's bringing in corporate attention, and a lot of that was triggered from the oil and the Iranian war, where big banks and corporates could be able to trade 24/7 over the weekend using Hyperliquid and covering their risk positions. They have to take risks using Hyperliquid, but essentially being able to get a position was better than the risk that they were taking on. And that's gained a lot of attention to Hyperliquid. Obviously, with perpetuals and other products that they've got, they are becoming the real corporate crossover, and that's very exciting, right? So that is a very, very key, and it is counter moving. It's down 2.3% in the last hour, but it's still moving up 4.5% today, 25% for the week. So Hyperliquid there, hot. So we do have counter moves, even though we've got the streets are red, the blood is on the streets. It is a green for Hyperliquid, and we suspect that that's going to continue. Now we're going to have a new entrant in there as well. I'm going to talk about that as we move further down. All right, so Dogecoin is down at number 11 there. We're not going to talk about that, but I just want to go through the top 100. So let's do that. So we've got WorldCoin on the move as well. So we've got a couple of projects, particularly in the top 100, that are in the AI kind of category or digital ID category. And we've got WorldCoin from Sam Altman, and that is up 25% for the last 24 hours. So there are key ones, if you were in the kind of these AI related type ones, trading ones, that they were doing pretty well. So 25% in the last 24 hours for WorldCoin, down 2.5% over the last hour, but still up 55.6% for the week there for WorldCoin. Lab is up 21% there, 287% for the week. Ethena there, or ENA, is up 17% last 24 hours, 17.8% for the week. So it's most of it today. Monero, they're up 6.7% today, but still down 8% for the week. Casper up 3.8%, down 5.5%. Now, I just want to point out a few other honorable mentions here. Hyperliquid up 4.2%. We just talked about that in the top 10. We've got Ondo here, which we're going to talk about, right? Ondo holding at 39.23 cents, just down slightly over the last hour, 3.5%, with Bitcoin really crashing down. But Ondo there has got perpetuals launching within weeks, maybe within next week or the week after, but it's getting very close. And that's going to, I guess, be competing to some degree with Hyperliquid, right? And Ondo there, bringing tokenized stocks, dominates 2/3 at the moment of tokenized stocks. So this is a big deal. Ondo coming on the streets there, and up only 4.2%. So we're going to keep a lookout for that over the next week or so as well. Pretty exciting. Now let's go to the top performer in the last week. We've got Lab up there at 287%. Humanity there with digital ID as well, right? Like WorldCoin, 144%. WorldCoin there with digital ID, 55%. So you can see some of the themes going on here with these ones holding up. Binance Life up 50% and Hyperliquid up 25%. So you kind of got to see they've got this trading AI, perpetuals, and digital ID on the move. Those are counter moving, even though they're kind of basically ignoring Bitcoin being down, right? So they're on the move there. So we've got some definitely things going on there, tokenization as well. So pretty exciting stuff happening there. Now let's have a look at the last week there, and we're going to go down a bit further. Obviously, Stella's been doing pretty well, 16% up as well. Mincore up 11.7%. Injective, Zcash has had a good little run, 10%. Near has done really well, right? Near has done too, AI related, and that's up 9.8% as well. Dexy too, 8.4% there. Obviously, you can see Ondo, not too bad, and then ICP, a few of these, and FET there, artificial intelligence, up slightly for the week. So anything that's up positive for the week while Bitcoin's going down, it's got to be pretty good. But you can see some of the leading categories. Hopefully that's provided you some insight into what's going on and where money is being made in crypto right now. All right, so that is kind of cool. Let's look at the top 1,000. We've got Opinion, that's up 68%. We've got Magma Finance up 56%. Infinitive, Finit is up 31%. Those are trending in the top 100. Those are the top gainers in the top 1,000, I should say. Trending overall is Bonk, Bitcoin, and Venus token, but they're all down slightly there on the trending there. So that is it. Let's zoom into Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, look at that chart. Whoa. All happened pretty quick. And we were pretty much teetering at around 73,600. And then 4 days of down candles. We've seen this in crypto time and time again, right? So we have got to a low so far of 62,500. We're currently at 62,797. And of course, you guys know all the shorts pile on, right? All the shorts pile on. Hyperliquid benefits from that, right? So people being able to take positions and using perpetuals. And like I said, Ondo is coming up within the next week or two. And so another big player in Ondos that's doing tokenization, dominating 2/3 of tokenization. So you can see where the trend is happening here. We're following the mega trends, right? So stable coins, USDC, earning, what's it, $15 billion a year, something. We've got in the tokenization space, we've got Ondo, we've got X stocks, right? Those are the kingmakers. And of course, Ondo there moving into perpetuals as well, giving, a bit of run for the money with Hyper as well. So we're expecting bullish about that. And then, of course, we've got AI agents. So those ones also looking pretty interesting. And related to that is digital ID, right? Because people want to know, are you real human or are you a digital? Are you a AI? Right, so that's where that's heading. Now we're obviously in DeFi. We're not really in favor of digital ID because we know that it can be used for entrapment by evil leaders, and that's a no-brainer, right? We see that in the West already, having to deal with progressive leaders oppressing their own people. All right, so that is we were down there at $62,797. So we are retesting our February's low, right? Our February's low was 60K. So we're only $2,800 above that right now. So we're doing a retest, and boy, we got rejected at 82,000. So that moving average for the daily was sitting at 82,000. We got rejected there, and boy, have we come down aggressively. Pretty chaos. All right, so we're down at 23. Now, what else have we had during this time? Well, we did have Michael Saylor. I'm not sure, he's trying to test the waters there. We also had him sell 32 Bitcoin. Remember, I'm never going to sell Bitcoin. But they've kind of moved their strategy from never selling Bitcoin to trying to improve the sats per share, right? So they've kind of moved the goalposts there. But it's probably had I don't know, he probably won't say it, but it's probably had a much bigger impact than he thinks it's had, despite the fact that it's supposed to be, Satoshi accretive and tax beneficial, right? Relative to when they buy certain Bitcoin. And so that's going to play. They also did a pretty positive move, retiring their 2029 convertible debt, which was they got down at 90 cents on the dollar, right? So it was a much better favorable for them, and saved themselves a couple $100 million and reduced their total debt down for convertible debt down to 6.7 million from, I think it was about 8.3 million. So I think that's a net positive. So really, this is probably a short-term play, but it has hit the confidence, right? It has hit the confidence. Now, is it a good buy? Well, we've got at the moment, we've got the 50-day sitting at $74,680. We've got the 200-day at $80,465. Obviously, we're retesting the bottom. So in my point of view, this is a very good value buy right now, a very good value buy for Bitcoin. Obviously, you have to do your own financial due diligence and not financial advice, but we're in the value play. Are we in the mega value play? Well, not quite yet. We're going to look at what that might be. But let's go to the monthly chart, right, and have a look at the long-term view. Are you getting a good buy on the long-term view? Well, let's have a look where we are on this old chart there. We'll wait till it refreshes. Hopefully it's going to give us a refresh here. We have to reload. Let's give it another reload and try again. So we're going to look at the monthly there. Okay, so what do we got here? So the yellow line, what's that? That's the 50 monthly moving average. It is currently sitting where? At 66,000. We just slammed through that over the last 4 days, right? And we're now at 62,000 here on the old Coinbase number. So we're coming down even a bit more here. But we've got that mark. So at the moment, it's below that. Now, how many times have been below that? Well, back here between June 22, so after we had the bull market and good old Richard Hart's Judas candle in October, we came down for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, 9 months there, maybe even 10 months if you include the 3 green bars that we were below the 200 moving average. But hardly we've been below that at all. So this is now another really good zone for buying compared to all the months that we've been above the 50-month moving average. Very, very bullish. Now, what I suspect also that we've got structural change happening because before a lot of this stuff was driven by retails and a few early crypto institutions, right? But now we have got since over the last 2 years, we've had the ETFs come in with corporate investment, and we've had a lot of innovation in the products rolling out in ETPs, exchange traded products, and things have changed. And now we have preferred equity products, and we also have a lot of regulation going through, opening up all the rest of the institutions and sovereign entities in the world. So we're about to, I think, to go through a new phase. So where are we at the moment? Well, last time from this bull market in 21 November, we came down 78%. Are we going to do that again, or do we really have structural change? Well, that is the question, right? And I think we've got structural change. So I'm still holding on to the fact that in February we came down to 60K, and that was a 53% move down. We're currently also down at 51% on this move at the moment. So we're still at around the 50% mark. The only argument for keeping that up would that we have got structural change. I think we have with the institutions coming in. And of course, we have this big mega theme where individuals who hold a lot of the Bitcoin from these previous bull markets are selling their Bitcoin to these new corporates. So we've got this transfer of Bitcoin, right? And I think that's playing out. We've also obviously got the preferred equity markets. We've got Strive. We saw that just buy almost 3,000 more Bitcoin. I think it was 2.5 Bitcoin. We've got Stretch, of course, buying last month, bought 25,000. But we do have a confidence issue when Bitcoin is going down. And of course, we had Mike Sellers selling at 72. So there's a lot of very moving parts, but you can kind of see, I still think we're in the structural view to the upside. Obviously, we had Michael Saylor and Tom Lee all talking about they thought that 60K was the bottom and that we're coming out of crypto winter, moving into crypto spring, particularly Tom Lee. And also we had Tom DeMark there, which we'll get to Ethereum, talking about the low on Ethereum. So we're going to talk about that soon. So are we going to hold on to this approximately 50% pullback, or are we going to go slightly down, maybe to 60%, but not do the 78% mark here? I don't think we're coming down that far. And the reason why is because I think once we go through June with the volatility around all those variables that I said, including the Clarity Act, that once we get to July, then we're looking really good for the end of the year, here. And I suspect that we're going to get rotation like we did from gold, silver, stock market, AI back into crypto, and crypto is going to have its run. So that's kind of the thesis there. And that's what I think is most probable, right? So that's kind of the play for that. And of course, we're going to get these enhancements to the preferred equity products, which are going to increase the frequency of capital raising and buying the old Bitcoin up. And I think at large numbers, we're talking about 25, maybe 50,000 Bitcoin in that zone, particularly including Strive, MetaPlanet, and many others that are in the top 15 DATs on Bitcoin. So that's the argument there. So I still think we're in a nice value range. The other side of it, of course, is where we're thinking the future's going. So think about we're retesting that 60K. But where would the super value be? Well, I don't think we're going much further than 53K if we do have the bearish scenario. And I'm going to talk about that when we get to the power law when we're coming up there. So hold on to your hat there. Let's go to Stretch. Stretch at the moment is, of course, this is the preferred equity. This is the one that's raising the debt, money from the debt markets, a couple $1 billion every month for the last 3 months. We're expecting this to be super brilliant, moving not just to June, but to July and onwards, particularly take off in July with the new frequency. It's going to go from monthly to bi-monthly or fortnightly payments. That's going to increase the frequency of capital raise and, of course, from the debt markets, and also being able to buy more Bitcoin, right? More regularly, and therefore be more supportive of the Bitcoin price structurally. Now, what we've seen is that we've seen a big sell-off with the Bitcoin crash, and now we're down at $94.65. So you're picking up Stretch preferred equity. Remember, it's paying 11.5% yield. You're picking it up for a discount right now. Now, we have been further than that, of course, in the past. In November last year, I should say, we got down to $90. In February, when we had that $60,000 low, we got down to $93. But really, it's supposed to get back to par. And you can see over these last periods here, in February, March, February and April and May, this is when we raised tens of thousands every month of enough money, a couple $1 billion every month to buy 20, 30,000 Bitcoin that we got back to par. So we get these extreme events. We've got another extreme event right now, and I suspect that we'll just once again, once we get into next week, perhaps we'll be back up, and might take a little bit longer than 10 days. But we will be back up before the 15th. Remember, record date is the 15th, and this will pie back up, and we will get back to 100. And you need to be over $100 to be able to issue new Stretch shares, and that raises new money from the debt markets if you're going to get back to raising $1 or $2 billion. Now, is this going to be slightly different this month? This is the last monthly dividend. Are we going to have a bit more struggle because of this extreme event? I suspect that maybe it might be a bit delayed. But certainly the last couple of days before the 15th, we will be back to raising a couple $1 billion and buying tens of thousands of Bitcoin again, supportive of the price to the upside as well. So we're going to watch out for that. But as you can see in the chart, we've already had these events before, and suspect that we're going to get back to normal there, maybe with a bit later than we normally do. But certainly the last 3 days, I suspect, leading into the 15th of June, that will happen. Then after, of course, June, we are moving to July, and that's when, assuming the vote goes through for MSTR holders for Stretch to move to bi-monthly, which we suspect it will, then July will be more frequently raising capital, more frequently buying Bitcoin, and there's not going to be enough Bitcoin, right? You'd have to have a pretty extreme event like we've got now constantly for that to be a problem. But I suspect that it's going to be so supportive moving forward. And of course, it's not just strategy now. With Stretch buying, it's also Strive and many of the other digital asset treasuries that are doing very well, offering between 11.5% and 13%. And this story only gets better. So I'm going to get that in a minute. So that is the Stretch part there. Let's have a look at the ETFs. Now, the ETFs, of course, have been playing a big role in dumping Bitcoin for some time now. And of course, the argument would be that they got nervous about the Bitcoin chart, and they were wanting to take capital into AI on the stock market. Of course, stock market moving up to record highs up to yesterday, and of course, plowing all that money back into AI stocks. And of course, we've got big IPOs coming up, at least 10 IPOs this year that are going to be significant. But we've got at least probably 2 or 3 that are particularly large in the $1 trillion mark. And of course, SpaceX is the top of the hill there. SpaceX, of course, looks like it's listed its price at $135 per share. It looks like they're going to be doing a very large retail offering, but essentially that is looking to launch, I think, around the 12th of June. So we could have SpaceX coming up by the 12th. That's going to be very bullish for the market. And then, of course, within probably 2 weeks after that, we're going to have that possibly going into all the indexes, most likely. And therefore getting 20-30% of its buying power from passive ETF and institutional investors. And so that's going to help keep the price up, right? So that could be pretty exciting. It's going to launch at probably about a 1.75 trillion market cap, but maybe the market's going to value it higher, or maybe some of those early unlocks, which there definitely are. Normally it's 6 months, right? But there's a lot of early unlocks. Maybe they'll just sell into the market. Remember, some of those early unlocks probably held were early investors, private investors 20 years ago or so. So that they'll be taking some profits, but the market absorbs it because they've got these institutional indexes having to buy it. And there's a lot, right? Hundreds of them. I can't remember how many. I think 700 or so. So it's bringing tens of billions of dollars to buy pressure there. But that's all new supply, right? Just like we have new coins in crypto, SpaceX is all new coins in stock market, right? So that's going to be a bit of a test for that new supply. And of course, liquidity in the markets is already stretched across a lot of these top AI projects like NVIDIA and others that have been pushing the market higher to record highs. Where will we go from there? Now, obviously, I'm very bullish about the timeline for AI because obviously it's a huge rollout, right? It takes years to roll out. You need a lot of energy, so you got to build out energy infrastructure. You need a lot of compute bases, and of course, we see Elon with SpaceX seeing that problem so bad that they need to go in space and build out these giant solar panel space satellites with AI compute and laser communication technology. So this is part of the value proposition of SpaceX, and also how much further AI has to run. Because AI is not really like previous technologies that we've seen, like the dot-com boom back in the 2000s. It is really about covering the earth with AI intelligence, and that takes time. That's going to take a lot of time. Some people say twice the amount of energy that US produces now, they're going to need to do that, right? So you can sort of see some of the big drivers, and that includes micro-nuclear plants next to AI facilities to provide the energy that they need, unlimited energy. And of course, we see big rallies in fusion technology, which seems to have been making some breakthroughs recently as well. And the game is on with some of those technologies to get those out, right? And particularly in the United States and Europe and a few other countries. So a lot of stuff happening in that space. And therefore, I think it's going to be a longer run for this intelligence age rollout than we've seen in previous technologies revolutions. So particularly around electronics, right, and the internet. So let's have a look where we are. So we've had a lot of sales in the ETFs here. 900, 1,300. The last sort of 10 to 15 days have been negative outflows for the ETFs. And I remember we got the digital asset treasuries. Most of them are buying, right, using debt products and equity products. And then we've got ETFs which are been selling, right? Been selling. Now I think that's going to reverse around as the digital asset treasuries keep buying, and then the ETFs will flow back in and pay higher prices. Well, not at the moment, the first ones that get in going to pay lower prices, but eventually, if that seesaw is going to change around, and they'll be forced to buy, and then by that time, we're probably going to, if we get the Bitcoin Act through as well, we've got the US government potentially buying 200,000 Bitcoin, and then all the other players are on, right? Clarity Act gets in, all the banks start participating, offering Bitcoin, etc. We already see that happening already to some degree. And then everyone piles on, and you got all those buyers piling on, and then suddenly you're up. You're heading towards these big numbers of Bitcoin. We might be down now at close to 60K, but suddenly by the end of the year we're up at 200K. See how it all plays out, and all happens pretty viciously because these trends are already happening, right? The stablecoins coming in, buying US treasuries, being demand for the US dollar. We've got the tokenization just ramping up, $33 billion. Ondo dominating that, along with X stocks from NASDAQ, and that's just ramping up too. We're expecting that to be $1 trillion plus in a year's time. It is game on, guys. So even with this dip, short-term dip, it looks brutal, blood on the streets, but actually best value time to buy and fear on the streets, and then you get the glory on the way out there, and you get the rotations from the rest of the market. So that's the layout moving from July onwards. And we're probably in this last little phase. And that's where I agree with Tom Lee. I think he's a little bit early on the spring, but I think that's general thesis is playing out. And so we're going to be very crucial watching the Clarity Act into June, and also the interest rates decisions from the Federal Reserve as well. And no doubt whether deal gets done in or a deal or a managed position for the Strait of Hormuz and oil. So we're watching all those variables at the moment. But certainly ETFs have been selling down. Now let's jump into the power law. So I did talk about us retesting the 60K that we reached on Bitcoin back on the, I think it was the 1st of February. Well, we've also got a power law which has been running very well with the old Bitcoin price, right? So it's been tracking very well. And we can see that if we go to the current price, and we're going to use approximately June the 9th. So we're obviously a few days away from that. But we've got the red line, which is the support line, at 58,800. So I said 60K is a retest of the February low, but the power law floor here is suggesting 58,800. So I think anytime we get below that 60K, they're obviously getting not just value. I think we're in the value zone right now after 4 days of red, but actually you're getting super value, right, in terms of buying Bitcoin, right? So there are some people out there that think 30, 40K Bitcoins on the cards. I don't see that, and I think the power law has been pretty reliable, and so we're using what we think is probable there. And so 58,800 there, you're starting to get below 60, getting into some really super value on the old Bitcoin. Now, what's the end year price for the power law? Well, by the end of the year, if we're looking at the 30th of December, we got $200,000, right? So $200,000 is the midpoint there. And so from July onwards, with these all these other things that I've just mentioned, catalysts, we're still looking at 200K for the end of the year. And you can see, look, we've been down before. We come down, then we go back up. We come down reliably, we go back up, come down and reliably go back up. During the bear market, we typically have a little mini peak as well. And I think that the 126K we had last year in October was exactly that, right? So another mini peak. We're still waiting, in my view, for the banana part of the curve. And of course, part of that is the rotation out of these other asset classes, AI stocks, stock market, gold, commodities, all that sort of stuff. And that is going to flow back into crypto. And you need to have this shakeout, the shakeout in the markets. And so I think that that's in play. So I'm feeling very bullish about the next 18 to 24 months. And that's in line with Permabull Tom Lee. But Tom Lee's views are actually pretty in line with the power law here. And, if he's talking about 250K Bitcoin by by mid-year next year, so next 12 months, June. And if we look at that on the power law, that's 230,000. So that's not too far off. So that's definitely in the plausible. And if we have the banana part of the curve, we can break through that green line and start heading towards the purple resistance line. And by the time you get to June next year, that mark is somewhere like 783,000 Bitcoin. So you're looking at 230 to 783 as a range where that banana part of the curve could go up to. Pretty exciting. And the earliest time that we could hit $1 million Bitcoin based on the power law here, particularly this version, is let's see, it's about June 2028, which is 2 years out, right? This is where we're expecting the most appreciative time in crypto is, and the build out of all these things with the debt market and finance coming through Ethereum is June 2028. So that's 2 years. That's the sort of short term horizon there. 1 to 2 years. Medium term being 3 to 5 years, and of course 6 to 10 years being the longer term. And Tom Lee sees a 10-year time frame. So this is the short term, the back end of the short term here, June. And we got the first time that Bitcoin might actually reasonably, based on the power law here, reach $1 million is in 2 years' time. And so what a journey that would be from 62K or 60K to $1 million in 2 years. Big deal. How will we get there? Well, we're obviously targeting debt markets every single month with the preferred equity from Bitcoin. We've got Tom Lee with capital coming over from the finance market and mass adoption. And then we've got regulations coming through, and that opens it up for sovereign states, corporates, including all around the world. So it's everyone's basically in the game, right? Everyone's in the game, and they're all fighting to accumulate. And then, of course, the slow ones that decide, slow corporates that decide to change their constitutions and their risk appetite, they will be slow to the market, and they'll just be buying at higher prices. That's kind of the play where we're seeing at the moment. So that is the big long-term theme. That brings us into Ethereum. So as I say, maybe that 58K is the bottom there. 60K we're retesting. We're going to watch it over the next few days. And in any case, we've got Ethereum at the moment. Ethereum has been testing. So this is where Tom Lee has Tom DeMark. So Tom DeMark, one of the best market timers in the world, in the equity markets and the crypto. Now he talked about $740 $740 for ETH. I think it got to $1790 in February, right? So if we look back here in February when we had the Bitcoin low of 60K, 6th of February it was, so not the 1st or 2nd, 6th of February, we got down to $1,742. That was the low, and I think he said $1790 was the bottom. Now we just hit that again. We just retested it, but guess what, guys? We just made a new low here since the bull market last year, and we got to $1715. So we've just made that today. So we've actually breaking down that low. So even Tom DeMark there, it's gone lower than what he would have suspected. And of course, even Tom Lee talked about us moving from crypto winter to spring. This is delayed. I think it's just a month too early. And I think July is the time that we're going up from there, right? And I've given all the arguments and catalysts for that. So what another opportunity to pick up Ethereum right now. All the narratives are still in play. Everything is still fundamental. The market's short-term play is this market's doing what markets do, right? And here we are at 1761. None of the long-term, short, medium, long-term fundamentals have changed. It's just a short-term wipeout here. And of course, all the shorters jump on as well. And so it's just a sell-off there. Now we've bounced back from 1715 to 1762, right? 1762. Now, what's this mean also is that the common stocks for the digital asset treasuries, for Michael Saylor's MSTR, for Tom Lee's BMNR, these are all, because they're all leverage plays, right? They're all big treasuries. They hold these assets, but they're leverage plays. They also get priced down. So we've seen both MSTR and BMNR get priced down in the market. So they're actually a good buy too. And of course, that affects particularly BMNR, affects their MNAV, right? Their market net asset value. And of course, that means that they're only trading at a discount, which means it's actually more profitable to pick up those companies than to actually buy the assets themselves. So we'll see how that plays out. But certainly, this is pretty dramatic. So opportunities abound in the markets, and it's a matter of buying those opportunities, right? So that's kind of where we are on the old Ethereum. So we've got EMA at the moment. We've got $2,130 for the 50. We've got $2,474 for the 200. And we're well below that. But let's have a look at the monthly chart here and zoom in on that. So at the moment, like a Bitcoin just went below the monthly. Well, here we are. We've been below the monthly for 5 months already. Since February the 6th when we had the low. We now got a new all-time, or the new local low, I should say, and we're still below 5K. So we're still in the accumulation zone. But I'm hyper bullish about July onwards. I think it's game on from here, right? Now, Tom Lee, of course, with Bitmine Motion's got 5.4 million ETH. He's heading towards 6 million, so only needs about another 600,000 ETH. He says he's comfortable to do that at a slower pace by the end of the year, but obviously the market's not playing ball with him, right? ETH is down, MNAV is negative, and so that's just not play ball, right? So he's got to pace himself as well. Still got about $440 million, so he can buy more ETH. Certainly going to buy more at this prices, no doubt. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him start buying up with some of that money. Of course, he's also doing moonshots because he's doing this big bringing finance over to Ethereum, and he may be wanting to buy a few other target companies. So he's got to use that 440 million very carefully. They are earning about $1 million a day. They got about 4.8 million of that 5.4 million ETH staked. So they're earning about $1 million a day. Well, it's a bit lower than that now, right? Because we've come down in price, so maybe it's $750,000 a day. And that's going to be used. Also, a little bit of that will be used to help prop up the Ethereum Foundation, which is now holding about 100,000 ETH. So that's pretty small these days relative to the big DATs. And Tom Lee came out with the big news that he's going to be supporting the foundation's projects that come out for the future roadmap for Ethereum. So obviously enhancing Ethereum with the big roadmap. And I posted an X post about the roadmap yesterday and how that's going to affect Pulsechain. So that's kind of where we are right now. So $1,770 is where we are on the old Ethereum. And obviously this is a discount price. Anytime you're buying below the 50-month moving average, which is at $2,440, it has been a good buy. You can see that back here after the last bull market in 2021. It was down underneath there for about 7 months. And then, of course, it rallied up. So you were buying essentially at a pretty good buy for a long period of time. We had a couple of months in April, May 25, and you were buying at a good time. So now is obviously another good buy, and the fundamentals are better than ever. The fundamentals are better than ever because back here, we didn't have digital asset treasuries owning, 4.5% of the supply. We didn't have SBET out there, right? A couple $1 billion worth of Ethereum as well, and also bring all the institutions over, right? Heavily institutional run, and also adding a lot of value to a lot of those institutions. We didn't have these digital asset treasuries, and of course, we've had all that consumption since June last year, and that's why we got this big run up too. Obviously, they were buying millions. We had a good, maybe a dozen digital asset treasuries on Ethereum, but only two really survived, right? Only two were actually successfully raising capital, and that was Bitmine and SBET, right? So those have played out. On Bitcoin, Bitcoin's a lot more stronger in terms of DATs. We've probably got a good, 15 to 20, maybe the top 10, 15 particularly, that are actively buying Bitcoin, and that's a lot more supportive. And we know that Bitmine emissions only needs to buy about 600,000 more ETH. Now, here's a question that's going on in Tom Lee's mind right now. Does he want to go past 5 billion? And how would he do that? All right. So how would he do it? He needs a positive MNAV on a consistent basis to do that if you're going to use common stock. But we may have some breaking news, guys. We may have some breaking news. Now, I've speculated that Tom Lee may very well decide to go down the preferred equity market and target the debt markets to raise capital and buy Ethereum up. Now, the question is that what he's going to use just to get to the 5%? In other words, buy the 600K? Or is he going to actually go beyond 5% and move up to 10 to 12%? If you go past 10 to 12%, you're normally breaking down the market impact, the network impact that you have on the network. You own too much. And so, maybe 10 to 12% is the max. And maybe that's what we're going to see with, I don't know, we might see that with Strategy as well. I know that they're wanting to go past 1 million, potentially up to 2 million or more. And so we'll see what happens there. But in any case, we got some news here, so let's have a look at that. That is it. So, pretty good buying opportunity right now in the old Ethereum, and we'll see where it heads. But let's have a look at some of the bullish news we got out today. Apparently, I haven't double checked this, so just note that I saw this and it looks legit. So just to double check. But Tom Lee and Bitmine just filed for a stretch style preferred stock. This is wonderful news, and I was hoping he was going to do it. It's not necessary. Remember that there are two different metrics that Michael Saylor's strategy uses. One is your leverage, in other words, the amount of debt that you have. That, in particular for Strategy, that is their convertibles, right? Which is currently, he reduced that from about 8.3 billion down to 6.7 billion, paying off some convertible debt that was at a discount, 90 cents on the dollar. Well, they also have another concept called amplification, right? And that is the preferred equity. That's where you issue preferred equity. You raise money from the debt markets above $100, and then you go and buy Bitcoin with it. That Bitcoin goes from the stretch product into the common stock MSTR, right? And that builds up the sats per share. And that's his new goal, right? Rather than just buying Bitcoin forever, it's actually what we're going to buy Bitcoin forever, but it's going to be accretive to Satoshis, right? So that's kind of the whole new narrative here. Now, Ethereum, if Bitmine does this, this is hyper bullish too, because they will go to the debt markets too, raise capital over $100, and then go buy Ethereum with it and either get the 5%, but maybe he's already, they said he was thinking about it, right? Thinking about, we're thinking about, are we going to go past 5%? And because we're going to get to 5% by the end of the year comfortably, are we going to go further than that? Which would be hyper bullish, because at some stage you're going to really help support that market ETH. But of course, you've got all these other ETH players coming over as well, but that does take time. So with the old finance theme and all the rest of the stuff that's going on there. So mass adoption, retail mass adoption through Mr. Beast, which I think is going to come in, and we might see some signs of that in the second half of this year, right? Mr. Beast already earning over $1 billion in revenue, going into the finance mass adoption for retail, particularly around Generation Alpha, Generation Z, and Millennials is massive, right? So this is all coming up. This is going to be explosive, and that's why we're just in this early, probably huge value opportunity in ETH and Bitcoin right now as it's pulled back. So, and it could be very short-lived. Next month, in a month's time, we could see it way back up again, V recovery, like we always see, right? So these V recoveries happen every time. So just remember, fear is your best bet there. And if we've already looked at the averages, the fundamentals, it's definitely an awesome buying zone. Again, it's just another free offering of getting value. Now, look at what he's got. So Bitmine looks like they're going to be offering 3 million shares of 9.5% Series A perpetual preferred stock. This is awesome, guys. This is awesome. So this is potential for 300 million preferred stock raise with weekly cash dividends. Strategy did this with Bitcoin. Bitmine may now be building the Ethereum version, and it made a lot of sense, right? Number one digital asset treasury. They're at pretty similar levels to Michael Saylor's Strategy. So this is the copy here. It says subject completion to June the 3rd. and prospectus date July the 9th, 2025 from this one. So we'll have to see, but 3 million shares there. I'm going to keep a lookout for that. I haven't double checked it yet, but that looks pretty good. All right, so that is huge news, and we'll keep a lookout for it, right? So obviously it's working for amplification. So remember, there's leverage where you get some sort of debt product like convertibles, but which can be converted to equity. But there's just going outright to preferred equity, targeting the debt markets. Remember, debt markets, $300 trillion plus. So if you just get a small fraction of that, you can pump Bitcoin and Ethereum to all sorts of levels, right? And this is the game that's on with that side of it. And then you got equity coming too. Not only you're targeting debt markets, you got equity coming too, and it's transferring from traditional markets over into crypto. We already see that working. We talked about Hype, talked about WorldCoin. They got talk about all these ones in there, all these sort of AI related ones. They are game on, and capital's flowing. Ondo, talked about Ondo. So we already see it happening, and it's just takeoff time, right? So you just got to be patient, though. It's not you're not going to become super rich in a day. This is a thing that we're looking forward, particularly over the next 2 years. I think it's going to be incredibly profitable. You just got to be patient there. Now you see online, people go, "Oh, it's down today, the end of the world." Well, that happens all the time in cryptos, right? These got to be new players to crypto. Or they're just crying or made bad decisions. You do have to have a good portfolio. You have to be diversified. You have to do all the right things, right? But this is the game on. The game is on, and this dip at the moment in the markets just another sweet gift at the moment as we get ready for this massive ramp up. And we're already seeing signs of that, as I say, with Hyperliquid, with Ondo, with Near Protocol, and all these other ones, FET, many others there. There's good half a dozen at least. Moving the counter to Bitcoin. Even though Bitcoin's down, normally they would all be down, right? They'd all be down dramatically. But no, we do have some winners in the right categories there showing up. So that is a pretty big news, and I'm going to hopefully talk more about that coming up as I do more checks and stuff. But that looks pretty good there. All right, let's jump into Pulsechain. Now, Pulsechain resilience is holding up pretty well. If you're liking the content, don't forget to smash the subscribe button, hit the follow button, and repost the show. Repost the show. If you love the content, get out there. And of course, if you haven't gone to our strategy club, the link's in the video description on YouTube, also pinned to the top of X. And you can join up Strategy Club today, just over $1 a day, and you get tons of intel in there, guys. I mean, it's every day I'm updating that. So get in there with all the great stuff that's driving the trends and the different top tier cryptos to get into. So pretty awesome. All right, so we're on day 1,118 since Pulsechain launched. And that is incredible. 13th of May, 2023. The founder, of course, Richard Hart, the founder of Hex. Hex was one of the top 4 or 5 coins in the 2021 bull market when there wasn't millions of coins around, right? So it was before that time. And here we are today, 1,118 days later. Well, we've got Pulsechain at the moment is sitting at 506868. So we've got this oscillation around 7,000. We had been holding 7,000 yesterday. We're just slightly down today, obviously with the dramatic pull down in Bitcoin, but Pulsechain's pretty resilient at 6868, holding around the oscillation around 7,000. This is our 11th week now defending that range. Are we getting the bottom? Is it going to be the bottom? Is it going to take 12 weeks or 16 weeks during the month of June when we're getting the Clarity Act and all those other things going through? And will we find the bottom? Or are we going to have something, really cruel happen or unexpected? We have some black swan event or whale or something that decides to rotate or do something crazy like that, and we do break down either for a capitulation wick or for a new range. Now, new range would be pretty brutal. Capitulation wick, I think people could get over. So we're going to watch. But so far, the market's trying to hold on to the 7,000, and it's been for 11 weeks. We've had obviously a bit of a trading range, that oscillation around that mark, but it has been trying to hold on, certainly under pressure the last couple of weeks. But of course, the market's also had a big correction. So it's going to be fun to see where Pulsechain goes from here. But certainly the RSI and the price action are suggestive that the bottom is being battled on. And for 11 weeks, that's pretty amazing. Normally we'd have broken down. We're broken down. So let's see what happens. Nothing's impossible, but so far the probability is to the upside. So hold on to your hats there. All right, so we're down about 2.6% on Pulse. Hex or P-Hex at the moment, sitting over 1,100 of a penny, down 2%. Been around this zone for a long time for the old P-Hex. PRUVEX at the moment down pretty dramatically though, down 8.4%, and we've had big volume through the Pulsechain today, which we're going to get to. So hold on to the app for that. That's pretty different from what we've experienced for some time. But PRUVEX playing a big role in the volume today. It is at 4037, down 8.4%. Pulsex at the moment is at probably 405. I guess it's 55, something like that. That's down 2% here. Ink token at 31 cents, down 5.5%. So yeah, the leverage plays in the Richard Hart cores down. These account for most of the high volume pairs over 100K. But PRUVEX really is the big downer there, along with Ink. Those are the ones that have really lost out today. Let's jump into the validator stats at the moment. Let's see where we are with that. We're at 49,259 validators, so it's pretty much been around that for a week. Let's go to the gas prices. We're at 686,000 beats, so that's pretty much low as well on the low end. 102 pulse at the moment for Pulsex swap. In US dollars, that is 0.0007 cents for Pulsex swap, so pretty cheap to do business. The bridge is kind of the leading indicator we've been looking for. We have been bleeding out capital as well during this volatile time. Even though we've got resilience in the Pulsechain chart, we're gone below 50 million. So that's unfortunate there. I don't know if this is the one. We've got this one. Two drums. We got two sound effects here. So unfortunately, we've gone below 50 million today. That's a bit of a shame. We're down 1.9% for the week and 7.8% for the last 30 days. You can see in the chart here, we're at the all-time low there on the bridge. Obviously, we lost the Coast Stables, 15 million some time ago, and we've just popped below 50 mil. So we're at 49.65. So not really where we're trying to go to, but obviously we've got a lot of carnage in the Bitcoin streets right now. Even though Pulsechain's holding up with resilience, the TVL's gone down. Now we do, of course, that is dragged down with Ethereum and Bitcoin because we do have about 18 Bitcoin on the chain, and we also got the Ethereum, right, which I can't remember the exact number now, but that's probably what's dragging the price down, right? So we've had modest stuff there. So remember, we mostly have bridged in stables, USDC, USD Tether, DAI, and then we have ETH and Bitcoin. So it's no doubt the ETH and Bitcoin are dragging us down with the dramatic moves down in price. So that's probably explaining the value as opposed to the volume that we've got on chain. You can always check Pulse Alerts to see the outflows. Let's have a look here. So we've got daily inflow 336,000 today, daily outflow 233. We're up 100,000. So even though the market's down in value there, we've actually got negative. We've got positive flows coming in the bridge. So that's pretty cool. We look at the last 7 days. Let's have a look at that. See what that's telling us. Well, that's telling us a negative outflow of 280,000. And then the last 14 days, have a look at that. What do we got there? Negative 750,000. So, still pretty decent, right? And then 30 days there is down at 882. Now, the one thing I want to say about that is that we have a lot of idle stable coins just sitting on the chain. Now, who owns those? You can make your guess or probability, and why they've just been sitting there forever, that's kind of thing. And then we have still pretty thin liquidity on Pulsechain, right, in terms of the actual AMM pools, but still decent enough to trade, but not giant, right? Not giant there, which also means that they're easy to pump up too, if we can hold on to the 7,000 mark on Pulsechain. So that's kind of the play there. So we're watching the bridge, we're watching those idle stable coins, and we'll see what happens in the future. Market timing is everything. And that includes, if you believe in the Richard Hart Magic Cup ride and the sacrifice ETH/Treasury, then that may come into play as well. We've obviously got technology like Liberty Swap privacy, Railgun, etc., that can bring over trading, and we're soon going to have privacy trading coming through Liberty Swap as well. That could suddenly move markets without people even really catching on too early, and so we're going to watch out for that too coming up. So lots of surprises here. All right, let's jump over to the volume. You guys know here we are on Pulse Coin List, so that was Pulse Coin Stats. These are some of our top informational sites. Well, we've got a massive increase in volume today. We haven't not had this for some time, and I think that's pretty good. So we've got $5.3 million going through Pulsechain. This is based on Pulse Coin List. Now they have, it's a bit like CoinMarketCap to CoinGecko. They have all the coins essentially on Pulsechain from the looks of it. They got 138,000 cryptos, right? When we get to Deck Screener, it's a much smaller amount. We're typically just looking at the top 100 trending, and they have their own volume calculations, right? So this is very different compared to some of these headline numbers. Liquidity, 300 million here, 24-hour volume, 22 million. See, quite different from Deck Screener when we look at the numbers. So take that for what it is. Obviously, we've got a lot of cryptos, I guess, creating a lot of false value potentially. We do have price discovery, but potentially price discovery is only really for the top coins. I don't know how many you want to include in that. Maybe the top 50, top 100. But in any case, we have a lot of coins giving false value in the sense that they're not really traded. They're just sitting there with some false value, right? That's pretty much it. We've not really got a lot of tradability. Pulse at the moment, 5.3 million, so pretty awesome. PDI, 1.5 million, OMG. Now, PDI, not PDI to $1, right? But PDI has had a great week. It's up 37% for the week, down 3.6% today, sitting at 2300th of a penny. And I think it hit just a little while back. Was it, what was it? What was it, 3? I can't remember the number, but it was some multiplier to $1. I just can't remember now, but I'd have to work it out quickly. But 1.53 million. Now, we know there's a lot of projects supporting that. In particular of note is the PDI printer from OG WebChef. But we also have a lot of DeFis that have launched recently, pretty popular ones like PMint. And I think ETH is the other one from Gabal King, Nexian, that are all supporting. And there's probably several others out there too. With the old PDI payer, right? The DeFi's paying PDI. They certainly support the volume, but volume is up today. One of our largest communities, of course, but getting volume and getting PDI to $1, two different things. So just remember that. I'm not conflating it, conflated two. But really good day in the office. 1.5 million, absolutely fantastic there for volume for PDI. Retest, $1.36 million. So a lot of turnover happening on the old Pulsechain in the last 24 hours. ProveX has been a big contributor, and that is a 1.05 million. So ProveX there certainly adding a lot to the mix there. So PDI and ProveX outside the Pulsechain, really a $1 million coin. So we've had $4 million turnovers in the last 24 hours. We have not seen that for a long time. Typically, we only have Pulse, and so that's a big deal. So 4 doing over $1 million, that's kind of cool. We got Hex on the moment. P-Hex sitting at $750,000. We got PulseX there at 435,000. We got Wrap Bitcoin. This is P-Wrap Bitcoin. Is a fork. So PDI a fork, a Wrap Bitcoin a fork from the 10th of May 2023. That is sitting at 300K. We got James Marie as a Troper, one of these liquidity models. That's a 288K. Incentive token from Richard Hart, 256K. EHEX, another Richard Hart from Bridgeton from Ethereum at 238K. Peacock doing pretty well at 191K, but the price is down 12% for the week. We've had a few sellers in there, obviously getting a bit, maybe a bit bored with the delay from LibertySwap. LibertySwap rolling out tons of products, but we have had a bit of a delay from them. But they keep talking about the rollout, so they have been rolling out feature upgrades and things, but looking for that heavyweight DeFi to roll out, like Liberty Lend, Liberty Perpetuals, etc. And obviously there's a lot of work to do. So just a little bit of delay, a little bit of there as well. Wrap Bitcoin, this is from Bridgeton. Wrap Bitcoin is 120K. So we've got 12 peers right now sitting over 100K. Isn't that pretty awesome? And we've got a couple that are not too far away, like Doubt Token, one of our top memes coins at 95K, and another James Maria there, 88K for a beer. Now I'm going to go down to 15 because look what we've got. World's greatest PDI printer, 84K. That's up 15% for the week. So pretty awesome stuff. 72 cents, holding up pretty well there. And we're going to look at that in a minute. Keep a hold on there. You can see on top gainers on CoinPulse Coinlist, we've got World's Greatest PDI Printer, Gas Money, two of the top gainers. And of course, funny enough, they're both OG WebChef, and then we've got EHEX there as well. So pretty good stuff. Lift in volume. Look, we're not getting the big price increases, but some of the projects are getting price appreciation out of that, the volume increase. And so there's definitely opportunity on Pulsechain, and we're getting resiliency fighting around that 7,000 mark, even though we're slightly below it right now at 68,770 there. So I'm just ignoring the 5 zeros. 68,70 for Pulse is the place. So that is pretty exciting, I think, all in all. Now let's look at the Pulsechain chart overall, because this is telling the story, right? The story is that we have long-term story. We've been in a mega downtrend for over three years, 36 months. You can see this big yellow downtrend. Look, Pulsechain had some unfortunate things happen to it. Obviously, the launch on the 30th of May 2023, and then we had price discovery happening. We're holding up at around 301,000, and then suddenly, at sacrifice levels, we ended up getting the SEC coming after us. Some guy with a bit of a pet peeve in New York, apparently, and it was game on. We also had obviously the Biden administration hating crypto because they hate freedom, right? They hate freedom. They want to control everything. They talk about corruption, and they're the most corrupt, right? They were the most corrupt. So they had, USA, they were corrupt. But we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars being funneled through to all their corrupt agencies. It was the most corrupt thing you'd ever seen. And of course, we had the Trump administration has been working on that fraud. It is so extensive. The Democrat fraud is so extensive. It is really, really bad. So they were attacking free market and wealthy people, but they were then harvesting the taxpayers. And ironically, many of the taxpayers, being Democrats, were actually the ones being robbed, right? So this is how silly the whole situation is. And we see, I'm very excited to see, Doge and now the anti-fraud going on from the US White House there as well, around getting rid of a lot of these infrastructures that the Democrats had set up. I mean, they were really a mafia robbing their people and using propaganda to fool them into doing this, right? So it's a really, really nasty situation in the West. So we saw that in America. We're finally seeing that being unraveled, which is fantastic. We're moving back to common sense policies, fantastic. Now, the only problem we have in the rest of the West, of course, is we have these globalist Marxist leaders. They're typically narcissists, and they have a lot of power. They've been using the political system. They've been filling the State departments with people with their own ideology, and many of the countries are riddled with them, right? It's almost impossible to get them out. It's basically like having a zombie apocalypse running thing. It's that serious, and we've seen the most ridiculous things happen in all the Western countries, right? And not only we've seen that, but we've seen some sort of crazy suicidal invasion of all those countries, and they're all in decline, right? And they see violence and crime and the rest of it go up. So it's really wonderful to see common sense coming from the United States, and hopefully that's going to see liberation, more liberation, as we're seeing some protests and hopefully some form of not just reform but revolution going on in the West. Otherwise, the complete utter collapse of the West outside the United States will happen, right? We know also the Democrats have this weird thing where they want to manage the decline of the United States, which was always ridiculous propaganda. And then so they pay themselves corruption, and then they hand the political power over to the United Nations, and they basically destroy the West, right? And create some sort of slaved Europe Western utopia. It's just a monstrous vision of the world, and this is where they wanted to head it to, right? And fortunately, we've got a bit of a battle going on right now, and some of the people are starting to rise up. So we'll see how that goes. Because obviously, you want prosperity, but you also want common sense. You don't want to live in insanity amongst a bunch of zombies. You want to live prosperously, safe, and etc. So the fight is on, right? Good men have to fight against bad men there. All right, so we got 68.80 here on the charts. We're 11 weeks into the move right now. We've got different structure, right? So previously, I've said this a couple of times, but previously we had, kind of a sideways movement back in December 24 to March 25 with quite a bit of variability in the price. But we kind of had that horizontal, but we were going down in the RSI, typically below. We're going in a downtrend on the RSI and typically just below 50. We also saw that other time we had kind of a sideways movement was back here in October through to November. This is on the weekly charts, by the way. And we were also in a similar spot going down the RSI below the 50. So both times we kind of had a horizontal. They were very volatile. They were also part of a downtrend, right? Also part of a downtrend that we had that happening. And the second one, of course, was after we bet the SEC. The orange box is the SEC period. Very long time, right? We had a nice rally out of that after the 7th of July all the way through to August the 11th. And then down we came. And then we've only had really two kind of consolidations, but the RSI was always falling. Now, RSI is like a general indicator. It's kind of a little bit lagged, but it does give you an idea of when something is overbought or oversold, right? So we were coming down on the overbought period both times just below the 50 on those zones. But this time the structure looks different, right? This is why we talk about it, is that something different is happening right now. Now, it's not inevitable that we hold this line. We can always have a capitulation week. We can always have a move to a lower zone if the right catalyst is there, right? We've certainly got Bitcoin moving down dramatically right now, but actually resilience and Pulsechain holding on to this defense of 7,000. So what does that say? The market is exhausted. The market doesn't want to do anything. The sacrifices are exhausted. The contract manipulations or exploits over, and we're talking about the big contracts, compound maker, things like that. That stuff is essentially over, and therefore the only risk we really have is maybe a contract exploit or a whale hacked, or a whale decides to rotate out late in the game, right? Those are sort of some of the only catalysts we can think of right now. And at the moment, but the market seems to be holding up, fighting for the 7,000 Pulsechain. We will, if you think we got a good chain, we've got DeFi, we've got a good future. We're obviously a copy of Ethereum, so we've got battle tested blockchain. We get all the upgrades from Pulsechain, from Ethereum for Pulsechain, including potential quantum protection by, the target is 2029 from the Ethereum Foundation. If we get all that, we now got Tom Lee there supporting the leadership for the Ethereum Foundation. And so this is kind of where we're going. We get all that for free on Ethereum, on Pulsechain. So it's really hidden value, as I call it, moving forward. So we got the Vitalik roadmap, we got Tom Lee, and of course potentially we've got Richard Hart and the Magic Carp ride. He said, I'm working hard. He said, I'm after Pulsechain season. He says, I'm in it for, I really want Pulsechain to succeed. So we're going to be watching out for that. He's got it. He is affected by the timing, right? So he can't do much about Ethereum being down. That's where most of the sack bags are. Last time we saw, right? And now they're all private, right? So that's kind of where we are with the old chain. And so, but what's different? We've got this 11 weeks moving sideways. We've got quite a bit of different range there, but actually it's not too bad. 7,000, or let's say 6,800 through to 8,200. That's kind of the mark there with 5 zeros, right? But the RSI is just humming along the oversold period, right? Unlike these other periods where they're coming down, we've been moving sideways on the oversold period here, just above 30, right? So we're sitting at 30, about 31 and a half right now, and the oversold is 30 there. So are we going to make it? Are we going to make it? It's 11 weeks into it. Is it going to take 12 weeks? Is it going to take 16 weeks to form the bottom? Is it going to be 5 months? Would it be 5 months to do it? We're also going to see. But in any case, if we hold it, at least you're holding a portfolio value, and you've got an opportunity to accumulate Pulse at these times. As I say, Pulse is cheap as chips, right? You can have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's how, that can be a mistake, right? Because you should always view the crypto that you have. What is the future value of it, not what it is today? It's very important there, particularly when you're down on the markets right now. So what do we need to break out? Well, I think we need to get over this. Obviously, when you get a down market, especially a mega down market that's been going for over 3 years, is that you need to get above the previous lower. We had lower highs, right, and lower lows. We obviously have to get higher lows and higher highs, right? So what is that in my view, based on this chart? Well, we had this lower high here at 1,200, and therefore I think that's the level that we have to breach to get past, right? We had a couple of wicks trying to do it back here in March, but of course we are down here at 7,000 now. I think we need to get to 1,200 at the first step, and of course we have to break past that. So I think we need to go to 1,700, which is the previous high, a lower high. So lower highs coming in here. I think we need to get 1,700, and then I think we need a bit of a retest, and that would be back down to 1,200 again. Obviously, some of the people down the bottom here that accumulate will take some profits and down. But what I'd like to see is at least us holding at least 2/3 of that value, and then maybe we start to zigzag our way up. But in any case, if we do this, in my view, particularly if we get to 1,700, we break this mega downtrend once and for all, right? That's the logic there. And you can see we previously, way back here in March, we had resistance at 1,700 as well. Support, I should say, at 1,700, and then we had resistance here at 1,700 in January. So that's the logic. If we can break that, that's the first step on our way to breaking this mega downtrend. Is breaking these lower highs here, and once and for all getting higher highs and higher lows. And then the same psychology of selling down and the forever down coin down 97%, whatever it is we start get the same psychology on the way up. FOMO and all the rest of excitement, confidence, all that stuff's come back to the market. And just like we've lost that confidence at the moment in the old Bitcoin, Ethereum, with these big market correction, we've got the upside here. So Bitcoin and that have gone down dramatically in the last 4 days. Pulsechain is showing resilience at the bottom. 11 weeks into it, the battle is on. The probability is, in my view, is that we're going to hold on and go to the upside. But there is obviously those two scenarios: we get a wick, we do move to a lower level, we just capitulate at some stage. But at the moment, given the fact that Bitcoin, Ethereum's come down, the resilience is looking good, and therefore I think the probability is looking good for us to the upside. But we've got work to do. We've got work to do. Even if we hold this level, we've got to break these higher levels here, and so that's the key. What would that be in percentage terms? Well, let's go to 1200. That would be 71%, which is quite reasonable once we get a bit of a move on. And then, of course, getting to 700 is 140%, which is a 2.4x. So that's a decent move, right? Decent move. Now, if we do move to these levels, if you're sitting in stable coins because you went risk off, then you're going to pay higher prices. You're going to get way less pulse. If you decide to buy pulse and accumulate pulse, then you're going to benefit from that big upside. Obviously, if you're in stable coins, you're going to be positioned well if we did capitulate or move to a lower zone for a period of time before we do a move up. That would be pretty good. Now, the other side of it, of course, is that we have pretty thin liquidity already on Pulsechain, right? So, the markets, in addition to all those other catalysts that I said about where the price got down here and what it would take to go lower, is that we've got pretty thin liquidity. Now, we can always go lower in markets, right? That price is only as good as the buy and sellers, right? But we have got pretty thin liquidity, and maybe that is one of the supportive catalysts for a move to the upside, and maybe that's also participating in that we've got this buy and sell balance, or at least fight going on between buy and sellers at this level. We're back at 69.21 at the moment, so we're almost back to 7,000 as we're talking, and of course we've got lots of room in the RSI for a big run. So the big RSI supports the charts that we could do something like this, and of course if we do get 700. And we come back and test 1200, that'd be pretty cool. We would certainly want to find support at a higher level and hold that up. But maybe this is telling us that we've got a good chance of that. Maybe people say, hey, look, we've got a bit of confidence now. We're starting to get up here. And I think once we get past 1700, up and away, guys, up and away. And then we can have a mega uptrend. And that, maybe there's a market maker involved with that, right? Maybe there is. But then, of course, further down the track, when we get ETH breaking out of 5K in the future, next 6 to sort of 24 months, that we can get to the ETH sacrifice price for the Pulsechain will be pretty cool. Richard Hart's talked about 10,000 ETH in his video last year. Maybe the magic cart ride kicks in around then as well. And then, just shaving off a bit of capital off that would be boom time for Pulsechain. Doesn't take much for Richard Hart to get a glory from this chart at the moment, right? So that's a kind of we'll call it a Pulsechain plus scenario. And so, yeah, that's kind of where we are. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that coverage. Let me know your thoughts on that. But that is, I think, a reasonable assessment of where we are on the Pulsechain now. Now, let's get to the top markets. How are we doing? We're an hour and 22 minutes on the hour. So we're going to go for another 8 minutes. And keep it an hour and a half show. I've definitely been going a bit longer lately, but I didn't do a show yesterday, so why not? If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the follow button on X and repost. Hit the repost, guys. It helps a lot as well. Now, I've got another publication coming out from the Crypto Night Show. MVS and I have been working and cooking, and that's coming out later today. Keep a lookout for that. So we're going to try and do a midweek publication. Obviously, we do the Monster Thread, the #1 newsletter on Pulsechain, but we're going to be doing a second project focused around projects on Pulsechain. So look forward to that, and we're going to try and be as consistent with that as we are with the Monster Thread, which has been 56 weeks now. So that's coming out, and so if you see that, hit the repost button on that, share it around. If you're a project team, you want to get in on this publication, we're going to be amplifying it. Then hit us up, hit MVS up or myself up, and this is also going to give more full coverage. You got the Monster Thread going out, get some couple of good days coverage on that. Then you're going to have this midweek publication, get another couple of days on that. So you're basically going to get good coverage over the whole week. That helps brand awareness, right, for projects, and also helps to increase engagement as well and participation. So we're going to the next level with the Crypto Night Show. Not only are we trying to do daily shows, which we do pretty consistently, but also the hottest publications on Pulsechain to support Pulsechain. And look, if this is the bottom at 7,000, you can imagine how many people are around right now, how many people will be around once Pulsechain starts rocking and rolling, guys. So keep a lookout for that. Now, I'm going to also do some coverage on some of the best stuff that's been happening on Ethereum and Base and other chains. We're talking about tokenization projects, perpetuals and trading and things like that. We're going to talk about that on Pulsechain and some of the key projects that are bringing that to us. We've still got more work to be done in that cutting edge stuff, but we do have a couple of players doing that stuff. So it's going to be exciting to see that evolve. And I think that's in addition to the markets themselves. So we're going to talk about that too. I hope you guys enjoy the content. Anyway, top 100 right now. So Dex Screener is telling us that we did 8.7 million in volume. This excludes the balance of forks, right? This is principally on Pulsex 9mm, SwitchX, our new V4. So Pulsex V2 technology, AMM technology, 9mm V3, SwitchX V4. And then, of course, we've got a few others sitting around there just still lingering on. But essentially, we've got the three big DEXs operating at the moment. 8.7 million. You guys know we've typically been doing about 3.3 million, right? Typically, consistently for a long period of time. But here we are at 8.7 million. Now, obviously, Pulse is not bolting away or anything, but this increase in volume is exciting to see, right? So we're going to go through that as well. Anyway, top movers today, we've got UFO Pruvex. That's up 11% there right now. Bonnie, Richard's first car, up over a year, up 8%. Teddy Bear from James Maria with PTC, up 4.75%. Remember, most of these are retail plays, right? Although I must say, having 11 projects over $100,000 today was spectacular. Typically, we only have, at 3.3 million volume, we might have 5 or 6. But at 8.7 million, we're up at like 11 or so. That's exciting. So very cool. And this time, we also had 4 over $1 million, which is exciting to see too. And typically, we only have 1. So very cool differences there. We've got UFO with Pulsex. We've got a couple of UFO peers there up 4%. Liquid loans, funny enough, up 3% there. Liquid loans, I always laugh at it because it's kind of like a liquid loans, 28K liquidity, yet they got about $52 million in the Sacrifice project, the third biggest, right? Third biggest now. I know they're going around conferences, but, they generally looks like a little bit of a joyriding there. But in any case, we do appreciate what they do, but it has seemed disproportionate to liquidity that was raised, right? So that would be the counter argument. We've got Gizmo at the moment is sitting at number 6. That's up 2.3%. Hex with Pulsex Peer up 2% there. PTC the Greys making a bit of a move up 1.7%. And funny enough, the price is at 407,000, right, on Pulsex. PTC the Greys there, those peers. Number 10, and this is something that's really interesting, is the world's greatest PDI printer from AG Webchef. Now, obviously, this is high risk, high return for the yield, and it does, the volumes do move, but it's been really operating it's really lifted its game recently. It's up 0.6%, sitting at 74 cents. Let's go have a look at it, guys, because it's kind of been interesting. We have been covering it for some time, and it has had a nice little boom up going on here. But look at the volume. I want to look at the volume very quickly. So obviously, volume, this was a big deal, right? Printed tokens, OG Web Chef was a big deal, particularly back here in October 25. Remember that volume coming through? People were earning a lot, but early on, the price was very high. Look at that, price was up there, very high. And we've seen that had a big rally. The price came down, but the volumes picked up between February and essentially October there, and it was very profitable play. But you were getting the capital loss on the token, but you were earning a lot of yield during that volume. So it was a bit of a game, a cat and mouse, I guess, there. And then we had a big volume drop off, and the price was still dropping, so it wasn't really great. Wasn't really great, particularly in this zone here where we're finding the bottom. We got down to 35 cents for a world's greatest PDI, and the volumes were relatively low at 8,000. So you're getting a much better entry, and the volumes are taken away there. But then it has taken off of life here, got pumped all the way high, all the way from 30 cents here, 35 cents, I should say, all the way up to $2.06 in April the 17th, and the volumes have picked back up. Look at the volumes picked back up there, down there as well. I'm not sure what exact manipulative tools they've got going on here, but it certainly picked up. And then it was a big sell-off, of course, all the way back down to 46 cents, and then it has rallied again to 73 here, and we're at the recent high of 88. So how high is it going to go? Can you go back up to $2 again? We'll see, but certainly volumes have picked up. They've been doing 50, 60,000 volumes just through the main pair here, and certainly it's supported for PDI, right? Because it is you earn PDI. It's buying PDI, you earn PDI there in the rewards, and it's paired with PDI, right? So certainly supportive of the PDI game there. And it's a turnover. Let's go look at the website and see what the amount of money it's earning. It's been spectacular in terms of the yield. And let's have a look at that. Obviously, it's speculative, so I don't want to pretend it's not. But look at the yield, guys. It's up at 20% right now per week. 20% of your capital back is yield. Obviously, you've got the underlying asset price, but that's looking solid at 75 at the moment. I say solid, but it's got the volatility in it. 2.23% per day, which is that's kind of the risk reward that you want to try and chase down. If you are, it's probably 1.5 to over 2% if you can get that a day. Now, how long that's going to last for? Question mark based on the chart. but certainly at the moment it's pretty good. Maybe it lasts for a couple of months. I don't know. We're up 7% for 3 days and 20% there, sitting on $21,267 on the old PDI printer. That's pretty impressive, right? So not bad. Now, even gas money has lifted as well. Gas money, you earn Pulse in that one. Is at $3,000, and that's lifted a little bit as well from the looks of it. 0.6% or 1.2% over 3 days, 2.36% in the last week. Pretty interesting. Now, obviously, that's got high risk, high return relative to the token and the yield, but it's at the moment it's kind of in the sweet spot, I guess. One could argue it's 2x the bottom price, but it's the yield's pretty attractive there. If you could get that going for 20% for 5 weeks, you've doubled your money, right? And I don't know what the asset price will be by that time, but presumably if you've doubled your volume, then the price holds up at 75, your entry, then you've doubled your money. That's kind of the idea. Now, high risk, high return, do your own due diligence. Obviously, some people have been burnt through OG Redshift when it has declined and got that low volume. So just take note of that. It's all depends, but maybe it's in a safer place. Who knows? You have to decide. But pretty interesting project there. All right, so that's number 10. That is up a little bit there. We've got Reserve Tay up slightly there. Surgical Trainers up slightly. So we've only got 13 coins that are in the green. So even with the high volumes, we've got most of the coins is down in the red here at the moment. And obviously we saw some big losers there amongst the Richard Cause, Ink Token, and a Provex were the big losers there today. But Pulse is holding up around 7,000, so that's not too bad. Now let's go down to the bottom here and see what is down the most. Well, we've got staked ETH is down dramatically, 28% here on staked ETH. This thing moves around a lot, doesn't it? Look at that thing. Big down day today. But look at that volatility in the damn thing. It's huge on staked ETH. It's like riding a buffalo, is it? Riding a buffalo. Switch. Now, Switch is obviously Switch is our third biggest DEX V4. Beautiful site. Although I did get shocked a little bit by the locking changing from 75 to 95. I know what it's trying to do in terms of reduce the sell pressure in the short term, and that's what the Treasury holdings was. Remember, they issued 30 million coins at the beginning. There's only ever going to be 1 billion coins after 2.5 years, so it's got an inflationary process. Obviously, if it's an ongoing successful DEX at a V4 and it's beautifully set up, I must say, then that allocation eventually will find a proper price equilibrium, probably within 6 to 9 months is my guess, maybe earlier, I don't know, but I think 6 to 9 months probably the right zone before you get that halving. And then as long as it's an ongoing concern, doing a significant share of Pulsechain. Now, Pulsechain's on an uptrend, then should pick up a lot of volume from that too and be a pretty profitable play. But in the short term, you've got the yield coming in. Yield's high. You're trying to attract capital. It does have optimization that we don't see on other DEXs because it has automated liquidity management, which is a beautiful thing. This is what we want on Pulsechain, right? This sort of high technology, and Brandon's done a good job there. Only question I would say that 75 to 90% jump. I think it was 95. Yeah, 95. It forces you to be a long-term owner, basically. And some people don't like that, right? Some people want the balance between 75 25 was pretty good, I think. 25% of rewards today. But of course, that's sell pressure, right? And people that are supporting the main two pairs, which are SwitchX and the stable coins, that's essentially getting sold into by the non-switch pairs, right? That's kind of the dilemma that you face. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but I was still a bit surprised that had that ability to move. Now, I didn't actually read the locking thing around that, so maybe it's in there. I don't know, but certainly that's interesting stuff there. So you can decide. If you're owner long term, it's protective, so you'd be happy with that. If you're trying to get reasonable trade, you might be unhappy with that. And if you're a speculator, then you'd definitely be unhappy with that, right? Definitely unhappy. Although you might be happy later on. Who knows? We'll see. But certainly short-term value sometimes can play out there. We've got Switch anyway, down 90% today. And obviously sell pressure there going on. You can see that, and sitting at 72. Now we're going to check out the volumes in a minute. But that is Switch there. Diehard there is a PDI play as well. I talked about there's other PDI ones. We talked about P-Mint. I think it's Ethos as a PDI. And of course, Diehard PDI as well. And then of course, we've got OG Webshin. So you can see there's a lot of kind of active DeFi supportive things for PDI that help that volume in addition to the market in the community being one of the largest and very diehard, right? With a lot of big influences. RHPepe, a recent meme coin launched over a month ago, down 17% as well. 9mm, our second biggest DEX, V3, is down 14%. Now, this was kind of pre-running, right? It's kind of pre-running. You can see that there in the weekly candles, and it's just down this week. But essentially, that's still been performing pretty well. Let's look at the pulse ratio. weekly candles as well. That's also down. So we kind of got resistance at 1670 pulse per 9mm. We're down at 1300, so a pretty decent little correction there percentage-wise. But they pay out their profits, right, to 9mm holders, and I can't remember what the yield is for that, but that's ticking away. Typically, maybe between 15, 20 grand a month. Maybe it's a bit lower now. I don't know, but certainly it's based on volumes. They've had some good volumes recently, so maybe that's been a bit better. But that is the Pulse there. Now, obviously, trend hasn't reversed. We haven't got to the end of those targets that I said, 1200, 1700 on Pulse. But this thing's already been running, really. I would say it's been running since October. So it's already kind of front running the market there. Probably maybe because they've got good supply lockup and earning yield on there. Maybe that's holding it up. And less speculators involved, right? Less speculators in there. More long-term holders is my guess. All right. Now, what's what we want on Pulsechain, right? We want capital. We're always going to have our pump and dumpers and speculative stuff. That's always going to be there, and that's part of crypto. And it's a healthy part of crypto too. But we want to get Pulsechain with capital flowing to better projects, right? So frontier technology, AI, trading, intent trading, privacy, all these sort of things. We want those capital, more and more capital over time to flow into quality projects, and therefore Pulsechain becomes a healthier value chain, right? That's a big part of the value picture. But that's a process, and hopefully this bear market may have helped that. Maybe the bear market has pinged so many people that they start to look for more value. So that might be an upside value to the uptrend as well. What else there? We got UFO pair down here. Funnily enough, PTC pair down here. Even though we had them at the top of the board, we got them down here, 10%. Amiga, one of our top DeFis, recently launched. Mega DAO there, and that's Cabal King. That is currently earning what is it earning? Hex. It's Hex derivative, right? So earning Hex, and that is tuning along quite well actually. 0003000. The pulse ratio though, let's have a look at that. It is down at 43. Recently got sold down in the last day from 47 to 43 there, but it's holding up okay. And of course, people are earning. What's the volumes like? Volumes have dropped off, so they're earning about 1,000, 3,000. Typically, if you're going to need one of these little reflection plays, I think you probably at least want somewhere a consistent volume between 2,000 and 3,000 if you're in one of these little retail plays, so that yield keeps ticking over day after day. So that's going to play. Definitely dropped off from the early periods. I would say for 23rd of May, it was doing 6,000, and it's dropped down into the 3,000. So you want to keep it around there. It's kind of been around that minimum level. So you want that just to keep churning, but that is earning Hex. So if Hex does a recovery, it's a hedge for you, right? So you're earning Hex all the time with that yield, and as long as that ticks away, then that can be a recovery. If Hex recovers, then that looks good. All right, so that is pretty much Amiga. Let's look out there for Investor. OG WebChef grandparent, obviously PDI printer doing well. Liz the grandparent, $1.02 right now, down 8.6%. And of course, we talked about the biggest loser today, even with great volume, is Provex from Richard Hart, and that is the peer-to-peer ZK technology, and that is down 8% right now. But let's have a look at the biggest peer. This liquidity was well over $1 million, right? Or $1.1 million or $1.2 million. Now it's 723 on the main peer, and we can see the big volume yesterday. Wow, we've got a new candle, I think, but big volume yesterday. Sell down there, big seller in play. And let's have a look at the weekly candle now on this. Look at that. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, so it actually dropped below the number one sacrificer, right, which was the Buckamentals team. Now, I don't know who's the one selling down. I haven't seen if there's any on-chain analysis for that. But it got all the way down to 3,000, just below the best sacrifice price based on what my knowledge is. And that was the Bunker one for the Provex sacrifice, the big public sacrifice in there. And that was at 3,200, 4032. So it has come way down, guys. Let's look at the market cap. And I had my little zones. Remember my little zones? My little zones there. We are well below. I said it needs to come back to 75 to 60, but I was way too friendly there, way too friendly. And I wasn't just right, but I was wrong, right? I was wrong, right? Is that new? Is that new phrase? I was wrong, right? I was right. It came down, but I was wrong. It went way down further and below the sacrifice. Now, we always knew it could go below the sacrifice price, but there it is, 46 million right now, based on the DEX screener numbers. Obviously, there's different. I think there's different numbers on Pulsechain stats in there for market cap, but 46 million now. Now, remember, at the beginning, we had this market maker, And we had Richard post out at the same time the market maker came out, so you can decide who the market maker was. But we had no market maker now. It's just been left to play out, and we see that on the rest of the Pulsechain, right? 1,100 and what did I say? 17 days. So yeah, and the RSI. Look at the RSI here on the daily, guys. Woohoo, 17. It's got to be a good buy now, right? It's got to be a good buy. Not financial advice, but that's pretty brutally oversold now at 18 negative. So maybe a good range to hold out. And of course, the Pulsechain holds at 7,000 mark. Maybe that's a good place to go. Although maybe you think there's going to be some more SAC players that are going to sell at a loss, and so be it. So be it. All right, so that is the play right now on the old Pruvex. Let's have a look at the Pulse pair, actually. Let's see what the Pulse pair is saying around the Pulse. Over there, it's down as well. We'll go to price, and then we're going to go to Pulse there. And let's see. So Pulse there, 5, down 5. So the high was back up here. It was 11 Pulse. Now it's down at 5.33 Pulse. So there we go. That is pretty crazy. I got slightly different shading on this chart, but that is pretty much it. So that is kind of it at the moment. We had Gears launch, right? Gears was another DeFi launch. There was a lot of hope for that. It was from Donny D, the founder of Function Island. But I think the issue there was the holders, the original holders there. A bit like Firewall had the wrong original holders, and I think they probably sold into that project there, maybe more than that. So you can do your own due diligence. I could say a few comments, but I don't want to get too much in there. Payment, of course, the PDI project launched recently. That's down 6% today as well. I think that's pretty much down from the highs. So the highs were down up at 27 cents. It got all the way down to 5.3 cents, back up at 9.5 cents right now. And of course, PDI, this is giving you have to put your PDI in this, don't you, to earn payment. So a little bit of a risk there. As long as the contract's safe, you're okay. But whenever you're putting PDI. Now, do you guys remember Hex back in the day, back in 2020? Yeah, we're going back that far, guys. I know people are probably a bit sick of OG talk, but we had 2 hourglasses and the third pro. I just can't remember the names. I know one was Trayvon's hourglass. That actually worked out fine. That played out fine. And of course, we saw finally the was it the 08? No, Hex Gold Whale. Remember that day came out? There's like a $50,000 windfall to people that were still in it. A few people that's still in it. But there was 2, and it was the other one was promoted by what was the guy's name? I've just forgotten his name too. So it's that long ago now, guys. Even I'm forgetting the names. But we also had this other project which I've got the names. So I'm gonna have to go back and read. I've got my list, so I have to go back and check it. But I wasn't planning it. I just brought it up now. But that ended up people put Hex in there, right? I think it was like February 2020, somewhere in that ballpark. And people put the Hex in there. And maybe it was January, February, March, something like that. People put the Hex in there. And I remember being in some chat groups and talking about it and saying, well, you think it's really safe for you to put your Hex in there and you're getting a secondary token? I said, this doesn't smell right. Doesn't seem good, right? And of course, Redcast come off 2018, 2019, and particularly 2019, there were so many scams around, right? We came off the back of BitConnect and everything else out there. So there were just scams everywhere. Like Google was promoting scams. There's all these Russian scammers, all these other countries scamming people, right? It was a pretty scary time. And of course, it ended up being a scam. Right? And all the X was gone. And so I know some pretty big players that lost a lot of X in there, but just didn't seem right at the time. So you got to be always a bit nervous about taking your key coins and putting them into secondary platforms. Obviously there's good players out there, but once again, it's tricky stuff. And generally, Richard would say just hold your main bags, right? Just hold your Richard core coins and just wait your time for arguably the road to glory, the road for the Magic Cup, right? And maybe we're in that pivot point right now with the battle on at 7,000, right? So that's the key. All right, so those are some of the ones there. We've got Peacock at the moment. It's also was obviously our most dynamic blue chip, rolling out the DeFi ecosystem. It's struggling a little bit here as well, under pressure, sitting at 9 tenths of a penny. So just dropped below that 1 cent there, down 5% today. The ratio, though, what's the ratio right now? 300, 1,300. So still okay, as long as it holds that line. I think holds 1,300. That's key. And we're waiting for a lot of their projects to roll out, right? So I'm way over time right now, but we're going to have a quick look at Liberty Swap and see where they're at, since they are kind of leading a lot of the technology development at the moment on Pulsechain. So let's see where they're up to today. Now, I didn't cover them yesterday, so they've probably been doing a few things since then. They have probably, they're rolling out features all the time. Some of them they're all great, but some of them, are, you've got big things happening, new DeFi rolling out, and then you have feature upgrades, which are all important, but they're not as sexy, let's say, for the market. So that's kind of the play there. Let's have a look. Let's scroll back down here. Let's see what we got there. Now I haven't gone through yesterday because I wasn't live stream yesterday. But let's see. I think we're going to go from here. We'll go from here. Now, big shout out to Crypto Coffee. He's been really ramping up his content. Have you noticed? Like, he's always consistent, but I really feel like he's been ramping up a lot of cool stuff, particularly around the Liberty Swap wallet, ZKX wallet, and also around buying Pulse and using example wallets. I think that's great. He is arguably our biggest influencer, in terms of size and engagement on most metrics. Obviously, we've got others like Somi out there doing pretty close as well to that. But the content style is different, right? The content style is different there. All right, so we got Crypto Coffee. What is Pulsechain? So he's got a lot of that out there. So big shout out to him for that. Keep up the great work. But then let's get into Liberty Swap. So Liberty Swap is what I would argue, our biggest blue chip, and they're doing a lot of the frontier innovation stuff. Why is this so important? Not only is it important for value on Pulsechain, but it's important because whatever the good stuff is happening on a lot of other chains, they're trying to bring as much of it as they can to Pulsechain. And that's highly valuable for Pulsechain. Obviously, Pulsechain fundamentally is already pretty good in the sense that it's a full system state fork of Ethereum based on the 10th of May 2023. So we've got a battle-tested blockchain. We've had some issues around some fork contracts because we didn't have oracles, right? We didn't have oracles supporting those contracts, and there was a few other issues around those. But I think most of that's gone by the bye. And now we've got new contracts coming. Now, these new contracts need to be some of the best stuff in DeFi, right? So AI, intent-based trading, privacy, perpetual markets, right? These sort of things, lending, new forms of lending. These all the things that need to happen, and they need to be built on the back of liquidity and volume encouragement, as well as multi-chain. And Liberty Swap is doing pretty much all of the stuff in that space. Now, I think there are some limitations. Obviously, you need partners in TradeFi to bring capital. So I think there's some areas that we still need work on. Liberty Swap may be trying to work on some of these things. They're certainly trying to engage with other key players on other chains like Ethereum, which is the natural for Pulsechain. But they're also bridging us between EVM chains and SVM chains like Solana, right? So that's very, very positive stuff for the longer term play and increasing the probability of capital coming over, as well as getting listed on as many of these other places. So when people go through and they want a wallet that does trading, lending, and everything, then they can find Liberty Swap. Liberty Swap will pop up on lists, go, hey, look, this is kind of doing everything. You can jump on and bring capital. And ultimately, a lot of those fees come back to Pulsechain. And in this case, of course, the official token is Peacock, and Peacock gets a lot of the benefit from the buy and burn. So it might be a little bit weaker at the moment at 1,300 Pulse, but actually, there's a bit of a lull. And a bit of the old OGs get out, and then you get to take off again. So it's take-off time as well, particularly if Pulsechain bounces from 7,000. That's kind of the backdrop. So let's have a look at some of the stuff there. So no sleeping season seems to be coming back on Pulsechain. Have you looked at the charts of some strong coins of Pulsechain lately? Things are starting to heat up slowly but surely. And I think that's a reasonable characterization where Pulsechain is fighting at 7,000. We do obviously have you've still got the winners and losers today. Don't have many winners today, but I think generally we're starting to see a bit of a stronger move on the old chain, a bit of maturity as well happening, and better technology coming to Pulsechain. Now, like I say, Shieldgate's out here. Shieldgate's out there, doing a lot of promotion work on Pulsechain as well. Obviously, the Crypto Night Show, MVS, and us, we do a lot of stuff. But Shieldgates is another key player doing that as well. So we appreciate all the stuff he does with Pulsechain. And he's covering Crypto Coffee there. So it's a nice win-win there for that. And of course, Crypto Coffee doing a lot of great stuff around Liberty Swap. All right, so kind of cool. Let's jump up to the top here. Great news, of course. We're getting this collabs between top DEX aggregators. Obviously, we've got top DEX aggregators like BTC. I think it's still got number one share as well, but SwitchX is amazing. So SwitchX is definitely rising through the ranks. And of course, now they've got SwitchX Fine. They're also routing through most of the LP DEXs. So we're getting a lot of that optimization and arbitrage. That's really, really beautiful. But BTC is now integrated Liberty Swap Pool V3. So exciting. And of course, Liberty Swap, we talked about, PulseX, 9mm, and Liberty 5. Now, obviously, we've got Liberty Swap is bringing the yield protocol. A key part of that is the Liberty Pool V3, and now they're on version 2 of that. and also now PTS is now integrated Liberty Pool V3 into their DEX aggregator. So DEX aggregators will bring all their volume, particularly routing through any DEX liquidity they can, and of course Liberty Pool V3 and the yield product that they're developing is going to benefit from that with the demand coming in, which is kind of cool. Starting now, trading volume routed through BTS can flow through Liberty Pool V3, bringing more activity and fee generation to our ecosystem. And of course, with Liberty 3, people can put their own fee in up to 1%. And of course, they'll get 80% of that, right? And then 20% will go back to 10% buy and burn and 10% treasury for a Liberty swap. Now, I think Liberty swaps been doing, even though they've probably been doing some buying of Peacock, I think they've actually probably been building up the treasury for their future products that they're rolling out, right? So that's also taking place. To take advantage of this, we'll begin migrating key liquidity pools to V3 and kickstart Peacock buy and back and burn mechanisms. So definitely looks like that's in play. LP distribution fee, as I talked about, the 80% for liquidity providers, 10% buyback in Peacock, and 10% buyback HODL. Now, remember, one of the key peers that have been bonded to from a lot of other teams, Peacock has been one of them, right? PDI's obviously been another one. And these are the ones that you can naturally get a lot of teams going into these V3 pools, right? If they want to, if they choose to do that. So it's pretty interesting to see how that goes. This is an important step towards increasing protocol activity, strengthening liquidity, and creating sustainable value accrual for Peacock holders. More updates soon. So that's pretty cool. I haven't actually posted that, but we're going to repost that as well. And there is the V3 link there if you're going to provide liquidity. So we're going to check that out. Not now because, I've been going on for way past my normal live stream, but we're going to be going for another 10 minutes. We've got bonus extensions on today's live stream. We're up to an hour and 15 minutes. Can you believe it? But we're making up for yesterday. How about that? Yesterday we had no stream yesterday because I had something I had to do. All right. So kind of cool. Let's jump back in. We're going to keep going. We obviously got quite a few people talking about Liberty Swap. So, people recognizing the contribution from Liberty Swap. Liberty Swap says, yes, everyone can now add liquidity to V3. It's quite safe and conservative. Pool.LibertySwap Finance. Our team is moving our LPs there to buying back Peacock. So they're putting their own capital flow into there. And look, these guys have been pretty consistent. The actions have followed their words. So it's been pretty cool there. Now, this is still early days, but let's have a look at the TVL. Let's see what's going on here. So gas money from AG WebChef, they put in a big capital there, 64,000. Ticking away there. Now, the volumes is what we're going to watch with Petius, right? So Petius will route through. No doubt some of the other DEX aggregators like SwitchX will pick them up too, and that will increase the volume that will be routed through, right? Because it's always about optimizing the best deal for the users of DEX aggregators, right? Like Petius, etc. Peacock is a number 2, 12,000 TVL. It's at $14,400 of volume. That's pretty cool. You can see the yield difference, APR differences here. 3% to 432. They got a breakdown of that too. We got Peacock 0, so that's a PDI multi printer. That's a PDI printer. We talked about that being talked about that just earlier. It's tied with Peacock. Peacock 0, obviously 0 is part of the quadfecta. Tied in the Peacock, one of these teams that we said there's a paired up with LP. No doubt, probably got some team crossover there with Liberty Swap. And that's got 10,000 in there. Got no volume in there at the moment, so I'm not sure what's going on there, but 10K TVL. Wrapped ETH is in there, 7,000, USDC 6,000, and USDC 5,000. Gas Peacock 4,000, and a Peacock Prevex 3,000 there, 2,700, and Pulse Peacock there, $1,600. Peacock PLS Rail, $1,200. 1,000. So remember when we first looked at this, when they had the first version, the only real peer that was up was Peacock, right? Peacock was up. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I'm not sure whether it was PDI printer or whether it was Peacock USDC or something, $6,000. So, TVL is really ramped up there. So it's good to see. We're going to watch this evolve and grow. And this will be, hopefully this will, I don't know if it's going to make it on the DEX screener, but it should do, right? It should do. With these V3 pools, with the liquidity being put up there. Now, remember, there's a lot of people, a lot of crypto on Pulsechain, they're not even in the LP pools, right? So there's all that capital that could build up the TVL on Pulsechain just sitting idle, right? Because, that's what people want to do. But there's all these opportunities to earn yield providing TVL. Now, if you're in a non-stable pair, then you're facing typically a lot of potentiality for impairment loss, depending what trading pairs you are. If those trading pairs are non-stable and they trade in general together, then your impairment loss will be close, not too bad, maybe close to 0. But just got to take into account those variables as well. Of course, the offset is earning fees, right? Particularly if you're in a good pool and you've got good tokens. So there we go. That is kind of the play. All right. So there we are. That is ticking away. So I'm really happy to see those volumes picked up there. So we've got TVL. What's that? 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, so well over 110. If you added everything up, I don't know what that would be. They don't have a global numbers here. Maybe it's something for them to do, is to add global numbers. So that'd be pretty cool. Can you please add global or totals for TVL and volume on the V3 pool site? Thanks. All right, we'll see whether they do that, but you can only put your requests in, right? You only put your requests in there. Hey, we've got just another Jeff in the house. Hey, big shout out there. Welcome. All right, so that's kind of the play there. We'll give that a lot of love. You guys show me some support there. Show me some support. All right, so that's kind of where we are. That's on that. Let's scroll down. I haven't looked at a lot of their comments, right? Because we're coming up to 2 hours and 5 minutes. But let's have a look here. What else have we got there? This is undeniably a strong source of liquidity that needs to be bridged to Pulsechain as soon as possible. USDC, Euro, Max in there, BLR are so really supported. ZK Wallet already supports Plasma, and this is really key, right? So it's kind of cool. The more stuff you have on there, typically the more stuff you're going to attract, more capital you're going to attract over time. If you have any issues with Railgun Public, give us a try. So Liberty Swap, they're still working to help you bridge in on the old Railgun. And they're listed, right? They're listed on the old Railgun as a solution. So you can sort of see where it attracts more people from outside of Pulsechain with being on these other sites, right? Particularly like Railgun and stuff. Now, here is something. I don't know if you guys are too familiar with this. Some of you may be, but peers, mate, they're going to be bringing it in. They're going to be bringing this into Pulsechain, and this is exciting. So Peer is moving fast. Now, what is Peer? So Peer is a peer-to-peer on-off ramp hub getting better every day. So it's, I guess, a decentralized way of bringing of going from the fiat world to the crypto world and arguably back again. And they're going to look like they're going to try and bring this into the Pulsechain, which is fantastic, right? I think it's largely on base chain, but it's a good way of exiting there. And you can see Peer there is a permissionless and composable on-off-ramp protocol, on-ramp to base, Solana, Hyperliquid, Ethereum, plus 20 plus chains, and off-ramp to USDC, Euro, and 20 other currencies. So could be a really good solution to do that. I think it goes via like Venmo and Cash App and things, but that's pretty positive there, and cutting edge technology in the fiat on-ramp. Often a problem is that fiat to crypto gateway. That looks like a really good DeFi potential solution there. Bridge to Pulsechain via Peer and Liberty Swap now. You are on you are your own on or off ramp there. Now I do think they have a liquidity thing. It's DeFi, I think, so they have the liquidity relative to the liquidity there. But it's certainly something, maybe an option that could work for a lot of people. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to repost that too because I think that's pretty significant. What else we got going? Let's have a look here. What's crypto? What's somebody saying? Maria just hinted at Pulsechain Liberty Swap token Peacock. I'm not sure what that means, but let's jump up the top here. 2 hours ago, the more valuable are locked in this type of pool, the higher the value trading volume. High volume leads to high APR, allowing participants to earn more in a safe and conservative way. Remember, 80% of the fees come back to you permanently as a V3 pool, of course. Other platforms typically offer 50% or at best around 65%. Launch your coin, build your long-term strategy, build your passive income strategy properly in the market bottom. For Peacock holders, as volume increase, more Peacock will also be bought back from the market. Now, the more products that they hook in, right? So remember at the beginning of the year, they did the Liberty Swap V2. That enabled them to just hook in a whole ton of DeFi. They've done a few contract upgrades since then, but that's what they're basically doing. They're building in this huge ecosystem of typically a lot of the frontier stuff in DeFi, and they bring it all into one ecosystem. So it's pretty exciting. And we could see that peers with the fiat on-ramp thing. Obviously, we've got the V3 pool coming in as part of the bigger yield protocol. And then, of course, they're adding all these other technologies around Railgun privacy, wallets, and everything else. We're expecting Liberty Lend to come. Perpetual's coming, which is going to be potentially a big deal as well, having a blue chip project on Pulsechain do that. Particularly when it's, remember, Liberty Swap's not like other projects because they have all the multi-chain bridging, right? So they've got a lot of volume coming in and out through that. And I'm going to show you a bit of that in a minute. So kind of cool. And we're at the bottom of the market, right? So it's kind of cool. I'm still standing on Peacock, says Liberty Swap. So obviously backing the official coin there. Now, remember, the one thing I haven't seen update is from CoinMarketCap. Remember that they put all the things in. so they could get registered based on market cap and not 24-hour volume. That would probably jump them about 3,000 positions or so into the top 1,000. Now, I don't think we've heard back from CoinMarketCap. Now, it's typical of these listing sites, can be very, very slow. So I don't know. We'll see whether we get any update from them about that. Maybe I might ask them as well. Crypto Coffee's 3 hours ago says, "Fear not, fellow delusional optimists. I've defended the bottom by buying 21 whole US dollars of our beloved Peacock and X tokens." And he's got this little demo wallet, right? He's not the only one doing that now. There's 2 influencers doing this, and they got the old ZKX wallet. And you can see the support there with them just buying up on the old Crypto Coffee. It's kind of a good onboarding demonstration post there, so I think that's pretty cool. Let's jump up the top here, see where we're going. So that's pretty much it. So the biggest news at the moment in the last 11 hours was Liberty Pool V3 getting pulled into DEX aggregator Proteus. Now, the more DEX aggregators like SwitchX operating, then that's really, really positive for it as well. I think we're going to go through another project here and talk about this soon, but that's pretty much it. We're 2 hours into the live stream. We've got this pool operating at the moment. Now, I just want to do one more thing. I know I said 2 hours, and we are going to stick to that pretty much. But I just want to go through the volume. So we're at 8.7 million on DEX Screener, based on DEX Screener's numbers or tracking. Pulsechain is at the moment at 8.7, is doing 7.4. So, we've got 8.7, we've got 1.3 million that is in other DEXs, which is a staggering amount compared to what we have been. And let's have a look at 9mm. 9mm doing almost 1 million. So fantastic for 9mm, even though 9mm is down. You see how the price is down, but the volume's up. So, that's markets for you, right? That's kind of cool. And so it's almost $1 million. And what's SwitchX at the moment? So look, SwitchX, 200K. Wow, how times have turned. Remember, they had jumped all the way up to like 198, I think was the record. And then it went all the way back down to 56,000. And now it's back up at 200. And I think that's a record high for volume for the SwitchX. So even though SwitchX is down, 20%, the volume is up. And that's what you want to see with the old SwitchX. Hey, look, we're going to go for another 10 minutes because I want to cover these topics. It needs to be done, right? We want to have a comprehensive show. We've got to do the thing. We've got to do the comprehensive, right? So Pulsechain, let's look at the volumes on there that kind of lead in the way. Volume at the moment, well, you can see PROVX, obviously down day for PROVX, hit the all-time lows below the best sacrifice price. So we're down at, we've got big volumes down. So that's a big part of the volume today. Hex, of course, a big part of volume today as well. But it's pretty flat on Hex, 1100 penny, holding up pretty strong. That support, just like we've got Pulse holding up at 7,000, Hex seems to be trying to hold on to that 1100 penny as well. So that could be something for the future too. And we've got Pulsechain, a big part of the volume. Obviously, Richard Cause, Peacock there contributing pretty well too on Pulsechain, 112K there, even though the price is down slightly, 4%, and so on. So, we've got better fundamentals with Peacock moving ahead with the V3 pools and DEX aggregators, but prices down a little bit. And, we're getting a bit of a redistribution from OGs and all that sort of stuff happening, right? So it's in play. Some of the other big ones there that we can see, PROVX, World's Greatest PDI Printer, 62K, and so on. So you kind of see one of the ones that are really driving the volume. Now, if you're a bigger player, volume's key, right? You need good volume. You want to be able to enter and exit, all that sort of stuff. So it is important, but also what is lifting the DEX overall. So Pulsechain V2 getting lifted by these projects. Let's look at 9M, have a quick look at the volumes on the leaders there. We can see that Pulsechain Inc., so the Richard Cause doing a lot of the work there. Wrapped Bitcoin playing a little role here as well, 15K. So that's 2 pairs on that. So that's quite nice, 25K with those two. 9mm itself, 4.9. So interesting. Sometimes 9mm is doing most of the volume, right? But today it's number 7 at 4.9. Peacock's in there too, doing a bit of volume as well, along with Crazy MoonX there. So there we go. That's kind of driving it. Let's look at SwitchX then. What is driving SwitchX volume? Obviously, good day in the office for SwitchX. Let's have a look at the volume there. Well, Pulse, Richard Cause, driving a lot of that stuff. And of course, what are a lot of the incentives in the farms for Richard Cause? So probably not surprising there with the TVL. And we're getting good volume through there. Nice. And remember, Switch, the DEX aggregator, is also routing through SwitchFi, and that's pretty positive. And there's other front ends also running through probably SwitchFi now too. So kind of cool. What else? We've got PROVX doing 10K. Obviously, the Richard Cause there. SwitchX itself doing 9K. A couple another 7K. So, add that up, 14K or so. Did I get that right? 9 and 7, 16K. Sorry, my bad. We got that, but then we had this other one, like 17K. So that's SwitchX there, and so those are kind of the leaders there. So Richard Core is leading the way, and Switch itself, I guess, the ones leading there. We don't see other ones there like PDI or Peacock or anything. So there's still perhaps a liquidity to be added there. And what don't we see, right? We don't see Liberty Swaps V3 yet. Maybe they're not ready to get listed. They've got to supply the contract to Dex Screener and get that. And it took about a week did it for SwitchX with the old load up there. So we could recently see Liberty Pool pop up here in front of 9 inch. 9 is essentially dead, right? And essentially dead. Still 57K today, so that's the best day we've seen for a long time. But essentially, that's been frowned upon. Typically, what's been driving that is 9 inch itself and SolidX from Firewall. That's generally most of the liquidity there. Uniswap sometimes can pip out 9x. It can do a bit more volume. You can see that moment it's mostly wrapped ETH, right? So that's pretty much it. And then the rest of these are essentially dead, right? Essentially dead. 14K. I mean, a little bit of volume that contributes. Sushi Swap, a little bit there. Pulse Rate, remember Pulse Rate was doing quite well at the beginning. It's essentially dead now, but they had a nice little setup there. We've got a few others. Spark Swap was doing great. Remember back in the day, it was doing great. Not too much happening there. Essentially dead, isn't it? And Velocimeter there, essentially dead as well. So this is potentially dead, but Dex Screener keeps carrying them, right? Keeps carrying them on there for some reason. Probably just not notified. But that is it. You'd think they'd have some minimums, right? Set some minimums to get rid of it. But yeah, so we're going to have SwitchX and presumably Liberty Swap V3. That would put us at 4 good DEXs, and that's exciting. So, I've been complaining about us just having Pulsechain and 9mm. Obviously, we've got a couple of balancer forks out there like the PH one, but they're not connected in liquidity, and they're only modestly additional based on the last time I checked on these as well. I will pull those up at some stage, but that is it. All right, now talking about SwitchX, we're going to finish off because it's important that we have completeness, that we have a look at, see where SwitchX is going right now. And so we're going to have a look at this V4 technology, the V3, VE33, and let's have a look at the analytics. So we have, what do we got here? We've got total volume so far since it launched is 2.2 million. We're just rounding up there, 2.2 million total volume. And it looks like total trading fees, 3,000. That excludes the farm yield, right? I believe from, this is trading fees. Protocol revenue, $3,200 in total. Trading fees over the last 24 hours, $335. That's obviously picked up when you're doing 200K. If your volume's jumped up 4x, then that's picked up a lot there. And so that's looking pretty good. Total generation there, revenue 368K. So that's an improvement, right? So obviously volume is at 228. We can see it's up 65%. Isn't that cool? TVL has dropped from all-time high. Remember, TVL got over 400K. That's down 2.26 there. I think a lot of that is related to the SwitchX price going down and the locking going from 75 to 95%. So, it might be trying out with the dampening effect on the price. Doesn't seem to have saved too much. Maybe what's the counterfactual, right? It could have been a lot worse down, I guess, which probably would have been the case. And the TVL getting vampired on the switch there. So maybe it was a necessary evil, right? And part of the early tokenomics management, which is the whole reason why out of the 30 million tokens, they had 15 million go burn, get locked in, and give them voting power for at least 1 to 3 months, right? To keep control over the contract as it matures and builds up the volume. But today, good stuff, right? Good stuff. So let's have a look at the charts down here. TVL at 295. Let's have a look at the month. I guess we're getting on there. What are we up the 14th of May? Where are we up to now? 14th to was that 14 and 16, 17, 23. So what's that? 4 weeks is it? No, 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks for running. And of course we had the peak out here, 413,000. That was a good memory of mine, right? 13,000 back on the 28th of May. We've just dropped down a little bit here. Obviously, we had the locking come in, right? That increased. I think that's still the case, right? Still the case. Yeah, 95% lock, see? Still 95% there. And we'll look at that in a moment. The volume, though, so look at that over the last month. Volume ticking away here. We've had, start off with 160 on the first day. Let's ignore the first day. It's all on your bullish. We start with 30K. And then we sort of rose up when we had the top TVL, the 27th, 28th, 199. So that was good memory of mine. So, yep, that's pretty much in play. And then we got up, on the 3rd of June, up 187. Ignore the current chart because it doesn't really adjust. we know that actually we're up at 210 right now on the latest day, which is pretty awesome. So that is crazy, but good volume there. The SwitchX down. Let's go to the earn there. Have a look at the SwitchX pools. So we can see we actually have 4 farms in here. We only had 2 before, right? So we have 4 now. And we can see that the APR for the actual fees is at like 2-3%, depending on these main pools. We now got Switch ETH and SwitchX, so it's expanded there to 4. We also have the fact that these are all farm supported, and so the farm yields concentrated liquidity. I mean, it's really brilliant technology from Brandon. However, obviously, early tokenomics is always challenging in these things. You're trying to incentivize people to come. And of course, you've got to balance out between the switch peers and the non-switch peers, right? Non-switch peers dumping down on the SwitchX peers. So you got to get a balance. That's probably why they went from 75 to 95. And it's just, they'd have to see how it goes. Sometimes you got to see how it goes, and then they do that. So you're getting 5% of your yield. You can sell straight away, or you can go burn it and lock in if you're a long-term believer. Other than that, 95% is now going to be locked automatically anyway. But, concentrated liquidity still looking pretty healthy. So if you're in the Pulse DAI peer, obviously you've got impermanent loss issues around Pulse and DAI. So Pulse does take off, you're going to be stuck with a lot of DAI, and you're missing out on the big Pulse rally. But, concentrated liquidity yield, if you happen to be part of the TVL in the pool that's actually in the concentrated liquidity zone where you're earning the big fees, you're earning 40,000 APR on there. So you're going to earn quite a bit of ProoveX, SwitchX. But 95% is going to be locked, and so you're going to become a long-term owner. So this means you got to wait out the long term. And as long as it's building up the volumes and it is a successful DEX and it's got arguably the best technology out there, then that could be a cash cow. You're just not going to get it today. You're going to get it later on, and the short players are always going to try and play the short game. But they've dampened down the short game, right? Because only 5% now is going to the short players, and that's kind of the play. All right. So yeah, I mean, look at the SwitchX farm there, 100% APR if you're in the concentrated zone, and so that can be fairly lucrative there. Now with the switch peers, it's still at 75. They were at 50%, so they've all gone up too. So they've locked down the switch dumping as well. All part of the management to make sure that value is held up. Hasn't stopped the 20% decrease today. So it's maybe a slightly longer term strategy to dampen them down and force people to become owners in the DEX there. That's the kind of way I see it. And it's not Brandon's language, just my language. I'm just talking about it as a freelancing, person talking around myself out loud. That's kind of like that. But I'm super impressed with the site, and I do understand, the kind of balancing act that goes on. But that's not from an individual point of view. If you're an individual point of view, you have your own goals, right? If you're launching a successful DEX that you want to play out for a long time, you got your own goals and you have to manage in your own way. And I understand all that. That's just reality. But if you're an individual investor, you have to decide these are parameters, and do I want to participate? So no doubt we've seen a drop in TVL, partly related to the increase in locking. But the believers are earning more switch, right? So the long-term believers are earning more holders and playing the longer game. Now, when will we find a bottom in the price? Well, if we've got lots of rewards, most of them are getting locked. Maybe it won't be 6 to 9 months with the inflation halving in 1 year. Maybe it's only 2.5 years. But there's a lot of tokens still to come out. Maybe it will be, earlier 3 months or something like that we start to get a floor in play. Remember, it's only been 3.5 weeks. So we'll see how that all plays out. Secondly, we're going to have a lot of burning and locking going on all during this time, right? And then you're pushing a lot of this inflation out into the future. And if Pulsechain's on a bull run, then a lot of stuff comes out, and inside 2 years, then maybe in 2 years' time, you got some sell pressure there. We'll see how it all plays out. Maybe some of the sell pressure is muted by high yields in the turnover. So it's fun to see all this play out, and it's great to have the technology, concentrated automated liquidity management. Come on, pretty damn awesome, right? Great to see that there as well. All right, so that's pretty much it. We're going to jump in quickly. Oh, that's right, you have to be connected to the wallet. Okay, we're not going to jump in quickly, but you can see the APRs there. All right, what else? I think that's it. I think that's it. So I think we're on the next cycle too. Are we on the next cycle? Not sure, but votes. So 6 days and 20 minutes. So we've jumped on into the next epoch there. So what do we say? 24 days. So we're in epoch 4. I think we're in epoch 4. Now they got some funny number here, 2944. But I think we're in epoch 4 here, guys. The reward pool about $800 there. So now the thing about this is, remember that the Treasury, because it burns so many tokens at the beginning, the first couple of months, can be a particular big share. And what they do is they go through the voting pools and they basically spread out votes along all the voting pools. So you might be in a voting pool that's got like 400% yield, and then they just go and stake it in. So that's what you're going to expect in the first couple of months as the Treasury takes those yields to build its power. So you got that offset as well. And it'll be a bit annoying, but it's possibly supportive of the long-term protocol. See, the individual's goals versus the protocol's goals to be a long-term, it can be two different things. So at the moment, only vote cast is 2.4%, but by the time you get to the end, it's going to be like 80, 90%, right? Now, the Treasury loses power over time, the first couple of months in particular. It's ideal is 1 month, but I think it's more like 3 months. You can see some of those estimates in the documents. You can go check out their estimates. Now, actuals and estimates, they vary, of course, but that's generally probably what's going to happen there, and it's what we're seeing happen there. And so your yield drops, arguably down to like, 8% or something, 6%. All right, but you get more ownership. You get more ownership over time if you are a long-term believer. So there's different strategies to play. That is the position right now. Early is always best, right? Early is always best, and I do believe there's some decaying profiles on some of the benefits there, because you're trying to get shares, I think, shares as well. All right, so that's pretty much it. I think we're going to finish there. Was that cool? I think that was cool. So we always get the most people watching at the end, but I've been going for 2 hours and 15 minutes. If you have enjoyed the content, man, it's been comprehensive, man. We covered the stock market. We covered the economic news. We covered the macro picture for Ethereum and Bitcoin. We covered the top projects moving at the moment, counter to Ethereum sell-off in the AI space, trading, perpetual space, tokenization space. We've covered all those. We've covered Pulsechain top performers. We've covered Pulsechain majors. We've covered some of the frontier DeFi Liberty switch that have been rolling out at the moment, and bringing in some of these the best stuff from other chains, and making Pulsechain vibrant. And then there's a longer play, right? The longer play. We made Magic Upgrade. We're going to benefit from Ethereum upgrades. We're going to benefit from Tom Lee's leadership, and this current pullback in the markets is a gift in the hand, right? Gift in the hand. We saw that versus the moving averages on the monthly. And so it's a great time to accumulate, but because the fundamentals are looking damn good for crypto, guys. It's just to buy the dips. Buy this dip is like a gift in the hand, having a second chance. I'm hyper bullish about when the market's going from July onwards, even though we've got, we should hopefully shake out the irregular stuff. Hopefully the Clarity Act gets through. We hopefully will get a decent sort of dovish approach from the Fed. That's not obviously either no change or decrease. And then that's pretty good. That leaves us with the midterms from November. I still think the Republicans still looking reasonably good, picked up pace from there. Obviously, the economy is starting to boom, and hopefully we'll get a lift in real wages as well. All that good stuff. Obviously, tax refunds looking good, investment looking good, technology looking good, and of course the PE ratios in the stock market still looking reasonable, even though we've had a rally, PE recovery, and the rollout is long term, right? It's not a short term thing to roll out AI, and then we've got new technologies about to roll out with mass production of humanoids, and of course the space age and everything else that's going on, fusion, quantum. It's an exciting time, and of course that's going to take multiple years, not just 12 months, right? We'll have cycles in between that, and movements up and downs, but I think the long-term re-rate of the stock market is going to happen, and the US economy could very well grow ecstatically 4 to 6% under the Trump period, and with all this technology revolution. So pretty awesome. Let's see where it all heads. But I'm hyper bullish about the next 6 to 24 months. And of course, if you got time, then the 5 to 10 horizon, the medium to long term is looking hyper awesome as all these technologies roll out in the intelligence age, which we have entered into. It's going to be fun. All right, hope you enjoyed that. World peace, everybody, and prosperity for all. Don't vote Democrat. Don't vote for progressives and liberals, Marxists or globalists, because they are destroyers of worlds. Great for the people that love prosperity, common sense, and security. Those are the ones you want to vote for. There's a time right now to defend the good people versus the evil, and we'll all enjoy it moving forward. All right, take care, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the coverage, and I will catch you again tomorrow. Bye for now.